do. All I ever wanted was to make it through. Tell me, how about you? How about you? So where do we go? Where do we go from here? Where do we go? Where do we go? Where do we go? Where do we go from here? Where do we go? Where do we go from here? Where do we go? Where do we go from here? Where do we go? Where do we go from here? don't wanna fall for you, oh no. But you make it so hard. Watching you dance all night, baby, is making me fall hard. Trying to take a deep breath, but I just can't control my lungs. Ooh. Trying to hide my cold sweat, but I just keep on talking in tongues. It's a funny situation that I got myself into.
No, they're not. Super with the threat and only putting on this round of
Everyone is do hate snakes, and this snake will end it here for the double kill versus Kyrie on the back of his fight. Cancel fast forward.
Evening everyone and welcome to the University UK and Republic of Ireland Spring 2024 Teamfight Tactics season. We are here ready to kick off with the first day of our live finals. That is of course one of 2 days, the second which will be played next week on Wednesday. I am your host for the evening and one of the two casters who's going to be bringing you these lovely games tonight. Trisouth XXL Salad for short, joined by my good friend Christopher. Do you want to introduce yourself to people at home?
Yeah, thank you for that wonderful introduction. I'm Christopher. It's my first time casting, and I will be your challenger guide to this evening's 3 games, I believe. Should be 3 very exciting games.
Yeah. I am not the challenger player in this game. It's not my main game, and no, I'm not ashamed of that. I think I have enough skill in other games that I make up for what I lack on the little arena. Now, for those of you that aren't aware, the last 3 weeks these players have been taking part in a Swiss bracket, leaving us now with the final 16 players who will be fighting out in a series of 3 games. That is 3 games this week, and then another 3 next week on the same day to find out who will come out as the champion of the United Kingdom. Now, obviously, early days, we have these standings up in front of us. We can make little guesses about who's going to win based on these points. Obviously some people pulling ahead already with on 6969. We have last season's champion Marvello, all these sort of big names popping out at us. But because we haven't really played any games yet, we haven't really seen these players, I want to focus more on asking you about the meta around the game right now. So Christopher, obviously heading into these games we don't have much of an idea of how these players are going to be performing, but what kind of comps can we expect to see pull out, just based on how the meta is right now, this set and how it works in general?
Yeah, no, I think it's really interesting. Right now, I think the real big thing that dominates the meta are those 2-cost reroll comps. Those 2-cost reroll comps, especially the ones that focus around those AP items with a superfan frontline flex. So if you think maybe Katarina reroll, Kill reroll, Senna reroll, they all use very similar itemization, and especially the way they've changed the levels, it makes it very hard for you to sometimes play for those 4-cost compositions without having a significant HP or gold advantage over your opponents. So I think 2-cost rerolls really do dominate the meta, and especially whenever so many of them are so prevalent at the same time, it means that it's all slightly easier for them to hit because you're taking the 2 costs out of the pool at the same time. However, the real exciting thing is that mainly, you can play more or less any comp at the minute. There's plenty of 1-cost reroll comps available, 3-cost, 4-cost, and even those 5-cost capped boards do win out lobbies still.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I think one of the things I want to focus on as well, now that this is our first sort of time seeing the competitive side of this set within this sphere, how do you say this set differs from past sets more significantly? Obviously, we just came out of about 2 months of sort of understanding how the Remix Rumble set works, and I think you can kind of start to see how the meta is evolving. So what do you think are the main differences which have started to stand out for you?
I think the real big thing has been the leveling changes. Because now the way the odds work for 4-cost compositions, it's really hard to play for those 4-cost compositions without a strong early game, which means that in those times where you end up loss streaking through stage 2 just because you didn't manage to find a strong board and it was the best play you had, it really means that you end up having to play for those reroll comps that we've seen have become so much more prevalent in the meta. And then obviously the headliner mechanic really does make the game a lot swingier. It has those, but it also has those more very exciting moments where somebody just hits and that's their direction, and it sort of comes out of nowhere rather than a gradual build that we've seen from past sets.
Of course, yeah, and I think one thing I definitely want to focus on as well, because we are sort of midway through this set now, and with this being the first live event, I wanted to sort of focus a bit on the past of how this set has grown as well, and ask you a bit more about the meta changes that have happened throughout the last few months. So what do you think has been the most significant meta change within this set specifically, in how it has just evolved over these past few months?
Well, I think the current meta, the buffs that were received to two-cost composition, the two-cost compositions is the thing that has really shaped the patch that we're currently on. Previously, we saw the prevalence of those AD flex comps, so you saw Caitlyn Ezreal around the Vegas Open time, and then during the sort of Open Qualifiers 2 and the Regional Qualifiers 2, we saw the prevalence of Karthus Akali and those 4-cost AP comps, and now we're really starting to see that those 2-cost comps that have been buffed while those other comps have been toned down a lot more. I think that's the thing that really stands out over the course of this set.
Yeah, and I think we've looked at the meta quite a lot now. I think people have had their fair share of game knowledge being spat at them by you. So I want to maybe dial it back a bit more, focus maybe on your experience with the games a little bit, get to meet, you know, the casters. So I wanted to ask you, what is your favorite comp to run so far on this set? Obviously, I don't mean necessarily right now on this patch, but just throughout the history of this set. What has been your go-to? What has been the one you find most fun, the one that maybe you find the most success on overall?
It's definitely Karthus Akali.
Okay.
Just watching the backline blow up is very satisfying. It hasn't really had its time in the sun except for the 2 weeks where it was meta, but it's still a lot of fun to play, and in the right spot it can still be really strong.
Absolutely, yeah. And I suppose looking back, you mentioned that you haven't really been playing this game for that long. I think 8 months, you said actually you started 8 months ago playing TFT?
Yeah, under 8 months.
So, well, within those 8 months, obviously there haven't been many sets out. But I did want to ask you what your favorite set of all time was, and which one you feel like you had the most fun with. Obviously, it can be this one, with it being the newest one out, with it being sort of the most fresh on your mind. But I was just wondering if maybe you found more success, more happiness playing one of the ones before that as well.
I mean, personally, I think set 9. I mean, it was my first, so we all have that sentimental attachment to our first, and but. Yeah, I don't know, the aesthetics, the way it all sort of blended together, and I think it was also a fairly beginner-friendly set. Maybe this Remix Rumble maybe isn't that. There's been a lot of changes to where you have to play the game in Remix Rumble, which really isn't as beginner-friendly as maybe it wouldn't have been. I might not be Challenger if I'd started playing in Remix Rumble.
Okay, I understand. And I think it's interesting to get that different perspective, because obviously I don't have as much experience with the game in the same way that you have, but I just have played the game casually for a very long time, and I still have that sort of nostalgic attachment to a lot of the old sets, especially the first set. I just kind of love because of how fresh it was at the time, and the auto chess scene in general was still very fresh, so it's nice to see. I do have to say though, this Remix Rumble set has been beautiful to watch just thematically. Like, I love the music changes that they added. I love how nice every comp feels to build. It feels like every time you're adding a unit, it creates something ultimately cohesive and that like feels good and sounds good and looks good to play. So I think Riot did a very good job with this. One thing I did actually want to ask you, looking forward, this isn't necessarily relevant to today's games, but there have been a couple of leaks about what's coming up in the next set. Is there maybe anything you're looking forward to seeing coming up soon? Maybe changes you think would impact the game positively, or just things you think we could look forward to in TFT in general?
The one thing I'd love to see is to be able to play those 4-cost comps again from a loss streaking position. In terms of a competitive perspective, that would be my one hope. Just because of a play style, how I prefer to play, I like the 4-cost comps more than the other comps. But no, I think I have a lot of faith in the TFT devs, and I'm really excited to see what they're going to come up with.
Absolutely fantastic. Give a little shout out to the devs. Maybe
Yeah.
maybe they buff your favorite champs as well next patch, just in case. This is a question
Arthas
now
Akali.
that I kind of have to ask everyone. It's a bit of a tradition now. I ask all the players, I ask all the casters. But what do you have for breakfast today, Christopher?
I'm a chicken Caesar salad wrap.
Ooh,
It's
okay.
a bit of a weird one, but I'm a chicken person. I'm just a chicken person.
Fantastic. And then one last thing before we go into a break. Are you a slow game, kind of like no risk enjoyer when you play TFT, or are you more of a forced triple prismatic, mega flip, just coin flip every lobby type of game?
No, I'm definitely the risk averse type.
Okay.
But you know, if the game gives me it, you know.
Fair enough. Well, I feel like I've got to know you a little bit more. We've got to have a little bonding session. We're gonna head into a little quick break before we head into our first game, sort through some things, and then when we get back, we'll be flying into our first lobby of 3 tonight. So stick around.
they're not super with the thread and only fans rooting on them this round of the
Everyone, if you hate snakes, then this snake will end it here for the double kill versus Kyrie on the bright side of this fight. Cancel flashes forward and
Good evening again, everyone, and welcome back to the University Esports UK and Republic of Ireland Spring 2024 Teamfight Tactics season. I might just say the full name every time at this point. It is kind of fun. It's like a little game for me, like a little tongue twister. Once again, I'm Salad, back here again with Christopher. Sorry for that little break. We were just sorting through a couple of things. I'm back with a nice new shiny microphone. And we hopefully will have footage from Game 1 coming up shortly. But while we wait on that, I want to get back to a few questions, Chris, because, you know, I got to know you a little bit back there, but I feel like there's a couple things I still wanted to just get out of you, especially on the meta sort of gameplay side of things, because I left a few questions unanswered. One thing which I was wondering specifically is, when you think about the current economy of the game, right, obviously this set has seen a lot of changes through, like, the win streak and loss streak system. How do games feel in general for you? Do they feel faster, slower? Do they feel more focused towards streaking or less so? Just in general, how could you explain that current system?
The streaking changes have been a really interesting impact on the game, actually. So traditionally, everybody thought whenever the streak changes came out that it would negatively impact loss streaking in particular. Getting less gold for those 5 streaks, and also to a certain extent win streaking, but win streaking is always good. You're always in a great position if you're 5 win streaking into neutrals. However, the one thing that people didn't consider is that whenever they changed from 2 needing a minimum streak of 2 to 3, it impacted a lot of the players in the middle, which then meant there was a higher prevalence on interest gold. And the people who are getting most interest are the people who are generally loss streaking because they have weaker boards, so with less gold on their board, obviously.
Yeah, of course. And I think, as well as that, sort of looking to more recent changes, obviously we just had patch 14.4 come out about 8 days ago. Wasn't the biggest patch of all time, but going back to the one before that, there were some sort of larger changes. I know you mentioned a little bit earlier about how weak Kale feels, for example, in the reroll. But just in general, how much do you think the meta has shifted from this last 14.3 and 14.4 patches, obviously with things like the Kale nerfs, with things like Heartsteel changes, etc.? What do you think has sort of maybe been maneuvered a bit with those decisions?
Well, there really hasn't been a massive shift in what can be played, more just the power level of what is played. Kale is certainly still a very strong reroll comp, especially if you can get the Mordekaiser 3 as well as the Kale 3. Especially whenever you consider that a lot of all these 2-cost reroll comps are rerolling for the Echo, Lilia, Kennen, Nico. They're all contesting the same frontline units, and so the kill comp, instead of going for Echo and going for Mordekaiser, they generally get that uncontested, and if you can hit that Mordekaiser 3, it really does push you over the top of all the other reroll comps.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things as well I want to focus on, moving more towards the personal questions again, because I want to keep bouncing back and forth, so we're not too focused on just drilling these little tidbits of knowledge into everyone's heads. One of the things I mentioned earlier about this set especially is sort of the cohesiveness of compositions, but I also feel like this set has been extremely flexible in the way that you can sort of merge comps together and in the way that you can attach certain things. Obviously, we saw maybe earlier in the season the prevalence of things like Jazz and then that getting nerfed and the spatula being removed and those sort of things. So one of the questions I wanted to ask you was, what do you think is your favorite sort of supporting trait, if you understand what I mean? So a trait that you sort of throw in as like a Jazz when you just get like a Jazz 2, or maybe in a composition where you'll randomly hit like a KD3, or like throwing a Hyperpop in. Do you think these can be game changers, and if so, which ones are you sort of most likely to see being focused on?
Yeah, I definitely think the most common trait that's thrown in at the minute is just 2 Sentinel. Just giving your entire team that extra armor. It's just a really nice thing to throw in a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Hyperpop specifically, you know, whenever you look at the Hyperpop units, like things like Lulu, things like Ziggs, they synergize really well with just getting that little bit extra mana, a little bit of attack speed. You know, you think of Lulu's a spellweaver, Ari likes attack speed. She also is a spellweaver, so she'll get more AP from that trait. You think of things like Ziggs, that Ziggs will give Shred, and it'll give Ari that maybe extra 10% attack speed. Same thing with Twisted Fate, same thing with, you know, all of these just AP carries at the minute that work really well with something like Hyperpop.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, look, we could go back and forth talking about TFT all day, but Chris, how are you, man? How's your day been? How's your week been? How's your month been? You can talk about it in a TFT sense if you want, but I'm more just talking about you as a person. You know, how's life? How are you doing?
Well, on Tuesday, I guess I rolled down and missed because I may have slipped on the stairs, and I have, let's see, can I get it on camera here? Yeah, we got my finger in a splint. So, yeah, I've been slowly bleeding out HP with all these doctor's appointments. So, yeah, it's not been great, but we're watching TFT now, so it's exactly where we want to be in the end.
Absolutely, yeah, and obviously, hopefully, the sooner we can get into that lobby, the better, because it's been a long time. Now that I think about it, I think the last time I even was able to cast TFT was probably in like November or December. And that was the last time I even cast anything. So I've really missed this. And obviously this is, you said your first time, or one of your first times at least?
Yeah, no, I have a little bit of experience casting sort of random games here and there, things like Rocket League.
Sure.
But TFT is really my passion. It's the thing I'm very good at.
And it's something that you met through basically just a friend that was playing it, right?
Yeah, so let's see. So my college, last year we won student champs with British Esports for their Valorant. So on the way there, because obviously I live in Northern Ireland, so we have to fly over and all that. So flying over there, we had spent a lot of time together, and my friend just pulled out TFT on his phone. And that's how I found the game.
Fantastic. Well, I do think we finally have some footage coming through from Lobby 2, ready for us to watch. So we will be joining a little bit into the game, have a little bit of catching up to do, but that's okay because I trust that we'll be able to glean what we can from this lobby. So obviously a couple people already tanking some HP. We've hit the third carousel of the game. Any thoughts just from what's on your screen right now, Chris?
Yeah, I think the really interesting is 50 HP. That really does signify a massive loss streak. Ideally, if there hasn't been a massive loss streak when you're on 50 HP, you're really not in a great spot. And looking at this board right now, it's a very solid mid-game board. Looks like they're trying to play for that sort of, it almost looks like a disco board on 4-5. And over here it looks like Katarina. Is that? No, probably not a Katarina reroll board. Probably more something like an Ezreal board that's temporarily playing Katarina.
Yeah, and obviously in that stage of the game right now where most of these comps are just sort of starting to take shape a little bit. You mentioned obviously Ponka down on 50 HP right now. So hopefully we'll start thinking about how they can transition this into starting to get some wins in the next few rounds. Obviously Wolves just 2 rounds away, so we don't want to be dropping too much HP before we get to those next few power spikes. Sentry taking quite a hefty loss there. But yeah, we mentioned some of the changes in the meta and just the way the sort of pacing of the game feels in general. So do you feel like if you're in just a regular game of TFT, right, say all things considered, are you more inclined to be on the side of someone who's trying to win streak and sort of push your leads, or playing it safe, or are you happy to just sit and tank the loss streak and move your way through the lobby?
Win streaking is definitely the most powerful at the minute. It just gives you more options with what you're looking to do. Having said that, it's harder to do than loss streaking, obviously. However, I do think that right now Sentry's in a really interesting position. He looks like he is trying to angle that disco line. However, traditionally those disco lines do tend to come from a win streaking position. Just because you need that HP advantage. However, it looks like that could be supplemented by his augment choice, getting that extra gold from balanced budget. Although, actually, looking at what he does have silver ticket. I mean, we could be looking at a Lulu reroll game, but it's very hard to tell what he's angling at the minute. You know, he's got his options open, which I really do like.
Yeah, obviously, while you're mentioning all that, I mean, got some fantastic little graphics flying up on the screen here so we can see who's facing who now. Thank you, Pro Team, for that lovely little addition to the stream. So we see Ponka now taking their, what we can assume to be first one of the lobby. So maybe the ties have changed a bit, or maybe Humble Dog has just fallen a bit in the sort of power of their composition. Now with Wolves being hit here and obviously 2 rounds away from the final, Augment being picked up, we should see a lot more people sort of have their comps set in stone, I feel. Are there any things that you're sort of worried about for these players that you can see so far? Obviously, this disco board could turn into something, but as it stands right now, you know, having that Lulu as your main damage source and the front line being mostly just sort of hefty bruisers that don't have much overall sustain, how do you feel this is going to work scaling, and how can they transition this into a winning comp?
Yeah, I think the really interesting thing with this board will be see what exactly they go for. So right now it does look like it could be Disco, however it could be Lulu theoretically. I mean, we did see another player holding 2 Lulus with those AP items, so it's questionable whether it's contested or not right now.
Yeah.
You could definitely go for the Disco, however these items really, you don't have great items, and it does look like he is angling the Disco line because he is scouting the other Disco player there.
Yeah.
He is quite heavily scouting the other Disco player, so that's something that he's going to be quite unhappy about. However, thing is to note, there was only 1 Twisted Fate out of the pool, 1 Blitzcrank out of the pool there, so there's still plenty to hit.
Yeah, still extremely open, but one thing I will say for Sentry, obviously, I think things to be worried about is probably won't be hitting 8 until this carousel round, obviously, unless they're willing to actually sack some econ to force their way there. So these TFs and Blitzcranks might start dropping a bit faster with some of the higher econ, higher HP players in the lobby. And obviously, the longer it takes to get this board online, the more you just start to fall behind the people that are contesting you. We saw that TF being picked up. Yes, it was just 1 TF, but bridging that gap is what's going to be the struggle, I think.
Yeah. Sentry really in a position now where I feel like he has to send it down to 0 here. He has to find some kind of stable board, and he is rolling now. Hits the headliner Twisted Fate. Okay. Probably just needs 1 Blitzcrank, and this is looking a decent board. Not a board I'd like to be on 40 HP, but decent still.
Yeah, obviously does get the Disco, which means, I mean, I'm assuming going to just commit to that 6 Disco line. Do you think you're still trying to force the 4 Dazzlers in as well? Can you get both of those into the comp, or are you sort of just more focused on the Dazzler and don't care as much about getting the Disco in?
It really probably depends on what kind of frontline he hits. Right now, he has the core of a Twisted Fate comp. He has a really nice, he is decent, I mean, he has a Morello's on bench. He could also make Guardbreaker. However, 3 gloves is quite brutal for frontline itemization because Twisted Fate is the really big scaling comp this set. You know, you want to buy as much time for those Disco stacks to pump up and just slowly ramp up this Twisted Fate to the point where he's just one-shotting everything. Although it does look like it's going to be enough to take down this Annie 3-star.
Yeah, in quite a good spot right now. I think, as you said, those tank items do look a bit worrying. Obviously, the Crown Guard, the only frontline item available right now, which is a nice item to have on the Blitzcrank in itself, but as on its own, with no other real tanks around you, it does feel very bad. Once you start getting to the late stages of the game, your front line's just going to get completely cleaved, and TF, you know, only maybe getting 1 or 2 casts off.
Yeah. We're looking around at some of these boards. He doesn't look like he is alone in his maybe slightly unfortunate position. A lot of these boards looking slightly weaker than what you might expect. That Ari board, you know, on 95 HP, looking very strong considering what the rest of the lobby's at right now. You know, we're in 5 Disco, 3 Dazzler. It's maybe not the ideal spot he'd like to be. No Blitzcrank, obviously. Having that silver ticket augment as well, you know, whenever you have an augment like silver ticket, it really does put a massive emphasis on you trying to hit your board as fast as possible, and whenever you miss your board, you just end up being down power level quite significantly whenever you consider that other people are going to have those combat augments over you.
Yeah, and that's not a loss the Ombi tanking right now, as Sentry down to 28 HP with Econ pretty much down the drain, and a board that is not awful but not really strong enough to see you through into the late stages of this game. Will be desperately trying to find something to bolster up a bit of a front line here, you have to think.
Yeah, I mean, the 2 things that I would say he's really missing right now, well, I mean, there's a couple of things. Frontline items is an issue. Sort of having Shred and Burn is also really important. You know, he had the option of making the Morello, decided against it. not a terrible choice whenever you consider he has 3 gloves. Wanted to make that guard breaker instead of the Morellos to try and kill off one of those gloves to make his item economy a little better. However, he is settling for that slightly suboptimal item. Twisted Fate does spread out that damage quite a lot, which means that if there isn't any burn on there, it is going to heal up.
Yeah, absolutely. And it will be interesting to see now on this bottom side of the lobby with Humbledog and Ponka now sitting on about 18 HP, only really 2 losses left in them. We could start seeing our first few players drop out, or some beautiful little comebacks start to come on across the board as we see Ziggs fly into that lobby. Kind of feels bad. You can't force 4 Dazzlers yet because you'd be losing the second Disco Ball unless you find Blitzcrank, so unable to really capitalize off this, but still does feel nice to have that unit in with the Hyperpop buff.
Yeah, no, it does feel really nice. Twisted Fate is really one of these comps that loves to go to those level 9s because it always feels like you're just 1 unit short on this level 8. As we can see right now, just wishes he could have that 1 more unit. Even at level 9, you almost always wish you could have 1 more unit, so being stuck level 8 is definitely not where you want to be with a disco comp.
And now Humbledog and Ponka both drop down to within 1 round of losing this game. Must feel quite bad overall. Obviously, could be losing 2 players in 1 round here, which means great for the other 6 players in the lobby. Will be farming points off that. Once we get into these later stages, we do start to see a lot of people take risks to sort of force themselves into that top 4 position just because of the extra point you get for finishing top 4 compared to bottom 4. So it'll be interesting to see if people are really committing to trying to scale and forcing their way into a top finish, or are happy to settle with just getting a good amount of points and transitioning that into something else in the future.
This is a really interesting board we see here. It's a Jin with 2 Shojins, a Gunblade, but also with the Disco specific augment. Now, I wonder if he's a Disco board that missed, or if he's intentionally pivoted into this Jin not being a board you typically see. However, that backline access from the Twisted Fate, it just comes through clutch. The Twisted Fate has a really good matchup into these boards which prioritize the front line, because as you take out a lot of the units, you still get access to that backline, as we saw there. The Jin actually dying before the Blitzcrank did.
Yeah, and off camera we did lose our first member of that lobby, so Ponka taking 8th place for that one. Humbledog just about survived, only took 7 damage from that loss, so we'll make it at least through the Raptors round, but does still feel quite bad to be in this position this early on in the lobby. It is only the first game of 6, so plenty of time for them to catch up, but they will maybe have to start thinking early about playing a bit more risky in future games to come. So you see Sentry just getting more and more offensive items. Does get Giant's Belt off the Wolves, so I mean, could create a Warmogs at the very least, or something of that kind, but other than that, not really many tank options here. Doesn't have the Blitzcrank either, so Echo is going to have to sit with those items.
Yeah. Does choose to go for the Infinity Edge on the Ziggs as well. It's really not where you want to be with itemization. He's starting to spread out his items on his backline carries as well. Still doesn't have 3 items on that Echo. It really does feel like he's playing for, or just scrapping for every placement he can get at this point. It doesn't look like this is going to end up being a top 4 for him, and I think he's recognized this. So he keeps rolling down quite a lot here just to try and get as many of those placements as possible.
Absolutely, and we see Sentry here will just pick up another win with this TF ult, so the board's starting to come into quite a nice spot here. Would feel quite a lot better.
Yeah,
with that extra Blitzcrank.
Yeah, the Ginsus on the Sona really does make her a viable unit. Just allowing that Twisted Fate to ramp up that attack speed much faster and hits the Blitzcrank naturally as well. It's really nice. Just not having to roll any gold for it. Although, I mean, having said that, I'd say it's probably well overdue. Finds the Ziggs as well, and looks like he's going to choose to send it down to 10. Interesting whether he goes for more than that, because a potential Ziggs 2 could be his out into a top 4 here. You know, if you look at what he needs, he probably needs a Blitzcrank 2. He probably needs then something else. Just that little thing to get him into the top 4 if he can't go level 9, which from this spot looks unlikely.
Absolutely, and this lobby at least does look like if that Echo can just hold on for maybe 1 more ult to be able to win, but sadly not able to do that. TF does get 1 more ult off at the end, but Urgot's still full HP and is pumping through that backline as we speak. Good damage got down, but within 15 HP now, 2 losses you have to think will be the end of it for Sentry, so it needs to start hitting.
Yeah, but it does look like on the side the race for top 4 is on, and finds the Ziggs too.
Big power
Wow.
spike there. I will say it doesn't really solve the frontline issue. As we see a headliner Blitzcrank pop up in the shop, I don't think that'll be picked up. But it does mean that the frontline needs to do a lot less, right? Because now, with the bonus attack speed, with also just that massive extra damage and shred coming out from the Ziggs, will also then buff the TF in turn. So much more damage coming out does mean if your Echo can hold on for an ult or two, you have a chance to just sort of clean through the full enemy frontline.
Absolutely, and on the side there we saw 3 people within 16 HP of going out. And only one of them can make top 4.
Absolutely.
Sunacast does come through.
That last little card result will not be enough. Doesn't land onto the TF, so is able to pick up another win here. Ashku down to 5 HP. The battle for 4th place is getting very close now. Obviously, quite a big gap between 4th and 3rd right now, just in terms of actual HP. So we could see these top 3 players sort of solidify their position a bit more safely, guarantee those top 3 spots, get a bunch of points going into the next round, as Dragon Scroll is picked up for Sentry, a much needed item to try and stall out this game.
Yeah, absolutely. Getting a 3rd item on that Echo is going to be really nice, especially whenever looking at a lot of what the rest of the lobby is. It's a lot of AP, except maybe that Mosher board. You know, that Mosher board has already taken the last 2 fights off of us, I believe, so it may be our downfall in this game. However, at the moment, just trying to maximize your power, I think it's a really good pick. And Ashku does hit the kill 3 finally. You know, he was stuck on 8 kills, 7 Mordekaisers for a very long time there, sort of bled all the way down to 5 HP and is now finally hit. But is it going to be strong enough? I'm not sure without that Mordekaiser 3.
Interesting now as well, moving the TF a bit to the right here, just to try and keep him a bit safer, but does lose the hyper pop buff onto the TF now. So I guess just valuing maybe the opportunity to survive that Akali burst over obviously that extra little bit of attack speed. Because if Akali gets 2 or 3 ults off onto the TF, she will just get rid of him almost immediately. As we see, getting taken down here, all the way down to -1. I didn't actually think there was enough to kill there, but just enough.
They're both out on 1 HP. And he sneaks in a 4th.
Ooh, just about collecting the 4th because Ashku drops down to -8, taking a bit of a heavier loss. So unfortunate for Ashku. Sentry, I think, will be happy with the top 4 there because it was looking a bit dire at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be very happy with top 4 from that position. And one thing I would say is on the other side there, our player in first here, he does have 8 Aries. It looks like he rolled right down to 0 on level 9. Has 8 Aries still. 1 Ari is all he needs to end the game. However, 1 is being held, which means there is only 1 left in the pool.
Yeah, absolutely. As we now get into these final 3 lobbies, that little 6 Mosher composition with the headliner. Call you on the side. All these teams do have still quite a lot of HP to play with as well, which is the main thing. I think, obviously, 42 HP, the lowest in the lobby, and the 2 lowest HP in the lobby both collecting wins off that round due to one of them facing the bot does mean that this could get stalled out quite a bit here. Could see another carousel coming in. Could see some really, really heavy late game comps. Obviously, YLCO just sitting on this level 7, happy with what he has so far. Those 6 Moshers all surrounding their main carrier god.
Yeah, no, really starting to see some really nice boards here. These 3 players have had, you know, definitely been in the best position all game, and it shows with their 40 HP, all being above 40 HP at the point where everybody else is out. You know, we see the Mosher board trying to win out with 3 stars. We see this Heartsteel board trying to win out with, you know, just brute force upgrades, you know, get those 5 costs in, better itemization. He's got another Heartsteel cash out, though it is slightly, but it's probably not a game-changing cash out.
And obviously 2-star in that Lowy does feel quite nice as well. Has the Thieves' Gloves, so a little bit of RNG there on whether or not that will be a useful enough tank to hold him in the lobby. We're 1 away from 3-starring this set as well to bolster up that Mosher composition.
One really interesting thing to note is we now see 2 Aries on bench, which means unless it appears on carousel, it won't be available, and being on 72 HP, he's not going to have that first pick on Carousel.
Yeah.
So it'll be really interesting to see if he continues to go for this RE3 with the hopes that maybe this player dies, maybe he can find it on Carousel, maybe somehow he can get that RE3, or whether he just gives up on it and sells seeing those 2 Aries on bench.
Yeah, absolutely. And now, just taking another loss here. 2 more games away before we get to the Carousel, so all these players should be comfortably through. Obviously, Chucky maybe just has to be a little bit careful he doesn't get too overzealous and tank 2 big losses here. We see that 3-star set finally coming in, HP going up by mountains. And having that York in so early does feel quite nice as well. Obviously hit him on level 7, just to be able to have that 6 Mosher with such a strong unit in, so that you didn't have to have one of those weaker Moshers in that don't necessarily feel as good to have this late in the game.
Yeah, and whenever we talk about sort of what this board needs, apart from maybe an RE3, interestingly, he is keeping the Aries. You know, you look at this Senna, it's still an itemized, or this Sona, sorry, not Senna. This Sona is still unitemized. You know, a single Ginsus on this Sona is just game changing. You know, getting that cast slightly faster means that the entire board is doing much more damage much quicker.
Absolutely, and now 1 round away from the Carousel. It seems all 3 of these players will be healthy enough going into it. York appearing on this bench here, no need to contest. We'll see. 1 away from that RE3 now. He is really committed to making sure he is able to get this, but as you mentioned earlier, kind of flipping this on the Carousel. Could potentially drop maybe just about low enough to go under YL, but
yeah, it's really interesting. So playing for the RE3 is obviously playing for the giant cap. However, it's whether or not he believes that, if he believes he's already locked up a second, which isn't guaranteed at this HP because they're all above 40 HP, and I do think he is the weakest board, but it's whether or not they can take each other out before he dies, and if that's the case, then playing for that RE3 might be he might feel is his one way to win. In that case, would be the one reason why you would hold the Aries in a scenario like this. Especially, you know, this fight is very close, and can the Akali do it? The single target from Ezreal is just too much. You don't really expect Ezreal with his giant ult to do a lot of single target, but he really does burst people down quite well.
absolutely. And Carousel comes in, no Ahri. Sadness
No
ensues.
There is a pentakill spat that could allow YL on his Mosher board to drop that 1-star Olaf and go for maybe a better bruiser. Something like an Alawi would be a massive spike getting those tentacles in. Also, even just something like what do you call him? Zac. Names are hard. Getting a Zac in, just getting rid of that 1-star Olaf will feel really nice. And it looks like he did pick it up off of Carousel. Or no, yes he did.
And that
However,
pentakill spot, yeah, coming in on the Gnar as well, I just wanted to mention quickly, which meant that he was able to 3-star just another unit. Just a little bit more tankiness, a little bit more damage coming out. Obviously won't completely change the way his board functions, but just a little bit of nice extra stats to think about.
Yeah. This board coming through from Chunky, really, it's done a really good job of getting those 2 stars online. The itemization maybe isn't optimal, and you know, looking at those endgame Heartsteel boards do love a 2-star Lucian with items, and he doesn't have 2-star Lucian or Lucian items. And so Chunky, he has been holding these Aries from as how do you pronounce that name? Breadwo. Is that correct?
Yeah, Beedwo, but
Beedwo.
Beedwo.
Apologies, my
We'll go with
dyslexic brain
Beedwo.
is going to butcher many names today, and I will apologise to all the casualties in advance. However, he does look like Chunky is going to die, and that is going to throw these Aries back in the pool. Maybe having that bit of extra gold to roll early on could have potentially been that 2-star Lucian that he hasn't found yet, which could be the difference. It could be why he's going out. However, denying that RE3 he felt was much more important at the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And now Chucky will happily just take himself a free round, playing against the bot here, obviously, which means that once again all 3 players will make it through to this final monster stage. Beedwo just getting clobbered out of the game by that Poppy. Chucky just about makes it out on 1 HP. Choosing to cash out here. Obviously, picks up a Chalice of Power. Might just be able to give him a little bit of that extra AP. Doesn't do too well on any of his champions, but I mean, just a little bit of bonus damage on the Lucian, a little bit of bonus damage on the Bard and the MF. Could make the change. 2-starring Lucian though, much bigger.
Yeah, very good find there. You know, continues rolling into neutrals, maybe doesn't trust the speed at which he can transition his board. You know, instead of making econ, he is choosing the speed, which is, you know, in a lot of instances, the correct choice, because, I mean, there's no good use having gold if you can't spend it.
Yeah. Just rolling over these... And I was here having to sell down now. Might even consider selling the Aries now that we're on 1 HP. Doesn't look like it just yet.
It does look like
yeah, it looks like
Beedle
Beedle's
has
given up on
sold
that
his
3-star
Aries.
as well. So no need to hold on to them. Looking more for
Oh no,
Blitzcrank
he has
3 now.
changed. Yeah, he's just changed what he's going for.
Moving
All
Ari
of
into
these
the
players
corner here as
making-
well.
Yeah. Probably trying to dodge that Shroud on the other side. Doesn't want to get mana reaved. However, it does look like moving Ari out of that KDA hex might be Vito's downfall, and it does look like Chucky is going to live on 1 HP, and that's a really tough way to go out. 7-1, your opponent's on 1 HP, you know.
Yeah, and I mean, especially that Ezreal ult coming in and pretty much just one-shotting the Akali, you wonder if the HP from the KDA score could have maybe given him a bit more access. I think, you know, maybe the mana reave on the Ahri might have dissuaded, but I feel like on old champs maybe it doesn't affect Ahri as much just because of how quick she casts anyway. Beedle obviously will be taking 3rd place, so nothing to frown about, but obviously having that much HP and being dropped out does feel quite bad, especially to Chucky, who managed to survive on just about 1 HP. That being said, this could be Chucky's last round. Every round could be Chucky's last round, so we'll see how this one plays out with his 6 Mosher comp, which is just about worked its way through the front line. Ezreal just getting his first R3 off, and now hitting onto the backline. This Urgot still full HP, still has that shield available. Set not even being able to take down, and one-shotting the Ezreal will knock out Chucky entirely. First place goes to YLCO.
Yeah, that was a really nice game. Taking the submit to the pit on 2-1 and sort of hard committing to that Mosher line, and even whenever he hadn't hit those 3 stars by stage 5, still had faith in the line, still held his gold, recognizing that his board is still stronger than a lot of these boards. Maybe not on paper in terms of gold value, but in terms of his itemization and sort of his synergy between units, it was just better than everybody else, and he pushed that advantage into a really nice first place.
Yeah, and obviously we didn't see a large part of the sort of first sections of the game, but judging from sort of where we joined in, what we were able to see, were you sort of happy with the way that the boards looked in general? Was there anything sort of surprising to you? Was there anything you weren't expecting to see in those top compositions, or something maybe you thought dropped out too early due to either player error or just maybe luck diff, that sort of thing? Anything which maybe stood out to you?
Well, I think it was Ponko, wasn't it, who went out in 8th.
Yeah.
You know, he went down to 50 HP. It'll be interesting to know whether or not that he rolled on 3-2 for one of those 2-cost comps. Whenever you are in that 5-loss position, you either have to roll down on 3-2 typically for one of the 2-cost reroll comps, or you have to roll on 3-5 for the 3-cost reroll comps. And so going out in that position, especially if you have spent that gold, is really not ideal. So it maybe suggests that he did miss his composition, or he was either trying to go for one of those 4-cost comps and maybe just couldn't hold out enough HP.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ponka coming into this was actually the 2nd place player through the Swiss seedings, so obviously has shown us that they're capable of, you know, doing well in these lobbies, able to pick up wins, able to pick up a large number of points. So moving forward, you know, still a player to look out for. I don't think this loss will be enough to completely force them out of contention, but we'll have to pick up soon. That being said, we are going to head into a short break before we come back ready for round 2 of today, round 2 of 3. So stick around and we'll be right back with more TFT for you all.
Tell me what can I do now? 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 Sometimes I let my guard down. Tell me what can I do now? Sometimes I let my guard down. Tell me what can I do now? Tell me what can I Tell me what can I do now? Tell me what can Tell me what can I Tell me what can Tell me what can I do now? You say you love me, say you're thinking of me, but you're just lonely. Tell me I'm special, but to you I'm anybody.
To you I'm anybody, but to you I'm anybody, but to you I'm anybody, anybody, but to you I'm anybody, but to you I'm anybody, but to you I'm anybody.
Say you love me, say you're thinking of me, but you're just lonely. Tell me I'm special, but to you I'm anybody, 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 anybody, but to you I'm anybody, but to you I'm anybody, but to you I'm anybody, anybody, but to you, but to you, but to you.
Snake will end it here for the double kill going to Kyrie on the back end of this fight. Castle's fighting forward, achieving.
Hello everyone and welcome back once again to the University Esports UK and Republic of Ireland Spring 2024 Teamfight Tactics season. This is day one of finals. For those of you who are just joining in, we have just flown out of our first lobby and are getting ready to head into the second game out of our 3-game night. Once again, I'm your host and one of your casters for tonight, Dry Salad XXL, Salad for short, joined by the lovely Christopher. If you want to say hi again, just in case they missed your face, Chris. And I think we'll start talking about the games that are yet to come. Obviously, from that first game, we do now start to see how the bracket is going to shape up. A little bit before this, we showed you guys what the standings were looking like with the teams, the individual players who had come in through the Swiss stage. But now that those two lobbies have been played, we have our first scores from game one. So if you look to my this side of me, basically, we can see the top 8 players remaining in the lobby, and on screen now should be the overall bracket. So Chris, obviously one game, right? So it's just gonna be a lot of people tied on points right now. Not really much we can take away from that other than good starts from some people, bad starts from others, but it might change sort of the philosophy of how people approach these games, I think.
Yeah, no, definitely. Taking a 8th place in these games really is brutal. You really do want to be making that next week where you need to be top 8. So playing for that top 8, just trying to get into that top 8 is going to be really tough, especially whenever these points are much more weighted to those top 4s rather than those sort of more evenly spread point systems.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously some familiar faces still within this lobby that will be interesting to see how they perform. Ponka, obviously NTU, I have to rep my own university, so I try not to show bias on these streams, but I do want to see my people do well in these tournaments. I do want to see them farm those points for our university as well. But fantastic starts so far for YLCO. Tons of cool who was in the lobby that we weren't able to watch as well. Marvello, our last season champion, currently sitting in around 8th place, but obviously only 3 points off that top spot with 5 games still to go, 2 of those which will be happening tonight. Now, Chris, got some more questions for you, mate. Because I feel like I'm starting to develop the dynamic that we have together. You know,
we're starting to get a bond.
We're starting to get a bond.
It's our first cast.
You know, and I feel like from just person to person, from caster to caster, I wanted to ask you. I asked you before what you had for breakfast today. This is a sort of switch up on the thing. What do you plan to have for breakfast tomorrow, my good friend? Because I won't be here with you tomorrow. I won't be able to see you. I won't be able to talk to you. What are your plans?
I'm feeling like I'm going to have a cheese wrap tomorrow. That's what I'm feeling.
Still just a wrap, though.
Yeah, still just a wrap.
I was hoping you'd throw something a little bit more exciting into the ring, my good friend. You're getting too vanilla with these options. Now, that being said, though, to get a little bit more into the nitty-gritty of how these lobbies are actually going to turn out, I was going to ask you, so we mentioned a little bit about the meta previously. After game one, I asked you sort of if there are any shocks, anything that sort of stood out to you. Moving into game two, do you think we're going to see any shifts in specifically the type of comps we're going to see? Obviously, this could be impacted by the portals we see. We didn't get to see portal selection in the last game, which we will hopefully get through this game, but do you think we're going to see sort of very similar games being played out, or maybe there were some things which we won't be seeing again, for example, I don't know, Mosher 6, etc. Just comps we might be able to see again, not see again, or things that you are looking forward to now?
Definitely, because of the way the points are organized in this event, being top 4, you know, essentially all the top 4 players get an extra point compared to the bottom 4 players.
Yeah.
So playing for that top 4 is definitely ideal. Having said that, it's only 3 rounds. You need to be in the top half, and if you're sitting there on that just 1 point, you are going to have to try and find a way to push yourself into that top 8, and it's not going to be by consistently getting top 4. So you are going to have to try and get a first, second, and then maybe you can get away with a top 4.
I just just to explain why I'm giggling a little bit. For anyone who wonders, every now and then I start to run out of questions to ask you, Chris, because the thing is, being as interesting of a person as you are, it's hard to pick away at the little intricate details about you. So what I've done now is I've kind of opened up a new tab and I went into good personal questions to ask a friend/girlfriend, which I think one of those things can apply to you at least. Maybe two. I'm going to say at least one of those things. And I want to run through a couple of these with you to just, again, chip away at that sort of harder exterior and get down to the nitty-gritty of who you are and what kind of person you are. So, Chris, can you tell me, what was your favorite holiday that you've had in your life?
Whenever I was 13, my dad took me away for a surprise holiday on my birthday and didn't tell me, and amazingly managed to get my sister to keep it quiet for about 4 months, which is unbelievable.
See, that's lovely. And these are the kind of things you find out by just asking, you know? So I'm going to keep asking, Chris. Tell me, what is your favorite animal?
A dog.
Just a dog.
I mean, they're just great, aren't they?
How about we remove pets from the equation?
Ooh.
Your favorite wild animal? Your favorite undomesticatable animal?
That is tough. Let's see.
And I think this would be the thing that stumped you. I've asked you questions about the meta for like an entire hour, and now suddenly I bring up pets, and you're like, "Oh man."
See, no one ever says not pets. I've been asked this question before. It's never not pets. Let's see. We'll go for a lion. It's very default.
Lion?
I'm a very basic person, you know.
I feel like you're giving me quite a few vanilla answers, but there must be something in here which you're gonna just throw me an absolute curveball, and I'm gonna chip away at that slowly. But I'll leave you for now. We have another game coming up anyway, so when we get into that third game, I'll start actually kind of pressuring you more on these little things about your personal life that I want to find out a little bit more about. So to tease your caster brain just a bit before we get into game 2, I did want to ask you a few things sort of about champions in the game, meta in the game, roles in the game. I asked you earlier about what your favorite comp was to build all the time. You mentioned the Akali Karthus carry line. But is there a specific champion that outside of just gameplay, you really just like, you really enjoy, you really like the design of them, maybe something about the musical set that you love about them, maybe something about like just how they interact with other characters in the game or their theme, anything just like that?
I love Yasuo, just watching him dash around the board, and especially like if you can get a strong Yasuo, he just deletes things. It's very satisfying to watch.
Absolutely, and I think especially those one-cost units, there's something so viscerally fun about winning a game with a one-cost unit, because it just feels like almost like some sort of rags to riches story has just happened right in front of your very eyes, where you've turned this pitiful little one-cost into an absolute board-stomping unit. I know there are some really fun things you can do in the game if you do have more scaling comps. I personally, because of how much I love Jhin, just from League of Legends specifically, when they added Jhin to the set and they added the 4-star Jhin, this was like one of the best moments of my life. And I hit 4-star Jhin. I remember I made a very big deal about this because I put it in all the TFT caster chats. I was like, oh my god, guys. In a ranked game, I managed to hit 4-star Jhin on level 8. And I got my praises and I got my fantastical levels of respect from everyone in the entire lobby. But yeah, I think Riot have, just in general, done a very good job with the way that they've designed this set. I feel like adding a lot of new mechanics without being completely game-breaking. Obviously, they've said that they're bringing back the headliners, maybe with a different name, but they're bringing back the headliner mechanic moving in to the next set that's coming out. And with that around the corner, it'll be very interesting to see sort of how they're able to utilize that and turn that into something which maybe can last for sets and sets to come. But looking forward, obviously, it's very easy to do, very easy to predict. I wanted to sort of look back for a bit and ask you, is there anything that you miss from previous sets at all? Anything that maybe you would like to see brought back? Maybe something from a set that you never even played that you think, oh, that was a really cool addition to the game. How could they introduce that again in a way that is fun for everyone involved?
I mean, definitely one of the things I miss is the backline trait. You know, having something like Rogue from set 9, where it just sort of dashes into the backline and you can just outposition your opponent. Like if you guess the right side, or if, you know, the mind games that happen in that positioning makes the game very fun, where you're playing a slightly suboptimal comp in a lot of instances, which can just win out fights from good positioning. Yeah,
I suppose it's quite interesting as well when you start to look into these more sort of, I don't want to say generic, but quite staple archetypes, right? Like you mentioned the Rogue, that sort of classic assassin archetype. Very early TFT, you had very sort of vanilla basic archetypes in general, when you had like, you know, gunners and rangers and fighters and bruisers and all these things, and some of them have sort of stuck around, some of them have taken different forms, different shapes, turned into just various iterations of the same thing, just with different names. Obviously you have the multicasters, which is the same as sometimes spellweavers, which is the same as sometimes mages, and you just sort of recycle them, and the way they've been able to implement that into all these different sets has felt very good. I think we are getting closer, by the way, to getting ourselves into round 2. So I did just want to ask you once again, sort of about the way that the lobby's facing up so far. If you are one of these players, say YLCO, Tons of Cool, you've won this first lobby, right? You've got 5 games coming ahead of you. What are you doing to sort of ensure that you don't drop points and you stay in that top position?
Just keeping the pressure on. I'm personally a fan of always just playing for top 4s. If you can get that top 4, it's a round well played. Put it behind you, go for next one. If you can get that first, even better. It gives you a massive buffer. Just feel comfortable when you're playing, not have that pressure on you.
Absolutely. And we do have round 2 ready to go now. So our beautiful faces will be swiped off the screen. We'll be flying into this game to see how these players fare in their second game of the day. Coming out just as the first augment selection is on the horizon here. It'll be interesting to see how these comps start to shape up very early on.
Yeah, Marvello here, with that bruiser starts, will be really interested to see what his potential augments are right now. What is he looking at? Is he considering, does he have a bruiser specific augment? He doesn't in fact have a bruiser specific augment. It looks like he is going to try and angle just a leveling up strategy and push for one of these 4 cost, 5 cost comps by getting this early XP. Unfortunately, it does look like they were, that's very rough. Unfortunately, the orb has combined into a Corki 3 and he isn't going to get the XP from this round. Just slightly messing up how he collected that orb and buying the units before picking up the orb. Not ideal. Also having that Olaf on bench with that open cloak, open sword. If you had one of those sort of Gargantuan Resolve, too big to fail augments that work really well with Olaf, you would have loved to play it from the spot. Yeah,
absolutely. And as you mentioned, it's a bit unfortunate that quirky happened. Maybe could have held off on picking up the orb just to wait to at least get that XP. But I suppose not really the sort of thing that you initially think of when you're looking at the board. You just see the orb pick it up. So a bit unfortunate how that worked out for him. Doesn't get level 4 of this, which means we'll be stuck with the 3 bruisers and the Corki backline for now. It does make an Infinity Edge to try and bolster up just a little bit of that damage. Obviously, Marvello, just for those of you who don't know, was the Winter Split champion, so definitely a very well respected player in this community, well-versed player in this community, somebody who is in contention for quite a high spot, currently in 8th place in the lobbies as we stand.
Yeah, certainly in terms of rank ladder, Marvello is one of, if not the highest ranked player here, been challenger quite a lot of this set, and has put up quite a really nice performance through the Swiss stages and into this stage. It does look like he picked up a 4th in the previous round. However, perhaps that was a very unfortunate spot where he scrapped for every placement. We just don't know because it was the first lobby. However, still certainly not out of it.
Absolutely, and this Cassante here with that Deathblade and even Shard, able to do quite a lot on its own, but obviously just not quite enough to fully wipe the lobby. The Kale able to clean up in the end here. So Bidu will happily take that win there, winning the last 2 in a row. Obviously tanking that first loss maybe doesn't feel as good, doesn't get the streak gold. I'm just having a look around the lobby. Seems like a lot of people sort of going for these early, strong frontline headliners. We've seen Cassantes, we've seen Olafs, we've seen Vi's, just kind of bolstering that frontline, trying to keep a tanky enough squad to minimize maybe your losses in the early game, make sure you're not tanking too much damage, make sure you're not dropping as hard as some people did in the last game. Obviously we saw 50 HP on some players, we saw these loss streaks just went way too far, as you mentioned earlier.
Yeah. And sort of looking at this board right now, kill does work with Morello's. You see 2 kills on board that could be a potential reroll angle coming through. Although if he could force the win streak through, although it does look like it is going to get in this round, this Echo with Crown Guard followed by Aphelios with the Infinity Edge plus the Crown Guard augment. does look like it's just going to be too much. Obviously, an early Echo with items is always going to be very tough to get through.
And obviously that ultra solidifying that fact. The fellows did have the Infinity Edge, and that in the case I think we've been able to clean up anyway, but nice that he gets the 2-unit win as well, just to deal some extra damage out as this first carousel lands, and we'll start to see a bit more direction come out from these players.
Yeah, and one really interesting thing to note is that it does look like a lot of our players have picked economy augments. 2 of them have specifically picked economy augments that give you XP instead of gold. Very interestingly, that means that you are going to have to play for those 3-cost reroll comps. Sometimes, usually, you're going to end up playing for those 4-cost comps, which cap out with 5 costs. Think Heartsteel, Ezreal Zed, think maybe Twisted Fate into maybe something like a Ziggs 2 Sona 2 and get a very capped out board that way. So how they choose to go about this is going to be very interesting. And a Senna headliner in shop here for our player, only X on 100 health. I mean, with Ginsus and Rageblade already slammed, it's hard to see how you can reject this.
Yeah, I mean, you can see the sort of thought process going on there. Do I want this? Do I want this? Do I want this? And 5 seconds left, choosing to throw it in. Obviously not getting rid of that 2-star Jinx for the items on its own, but does have that really, really strong backline now, and the front line not too shabby either. Taric with the Ionic Spark, just a little bit of extra defense, means there's a ability coming in and doing a bit of damage as well with that shred. But this Echo is doing his best to minimize the losses of this round.
Yeah. So it does look like Only X did want to play that sort of Kayle. Whenever you look at a Ginsus Rageblade Slam, that would be typical Kayle itemization. However, hitting these 4 Sennas so early on, you've got to think that these items do work on a Senna. They're maybe not ideal, but they do work. Is that something that you continue playing for, or do you pivot? It will probably depend on what his 3-2 roll down looks like and how many kills versus how many Sennas he hits.
Absolutely. Look at this cheeky little punk board. Nothing else, just 4 punks hanging out, having a nice time together. Little Gambler's Blade with the Ginsus on the Jinx, so hopefully printing out some gold over there. Obviously, it does feel a lot better when you have that minigun Ginsus stacking all the way up. Can start just farming a couple of gold every round. Obviously, the 1% drop down's not huge, but it does feel nice. There's closer a little bit of econ in, and does seem to have pushed him into a couple of slots as well. Obviously, sitting on 30 right now. But allows him to buy that cannon as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, being in this position with 5 Jinxes and a Vi is good. However, not having that Jinx headliner is very risky. If you can't manage to hit this Jinx headliner, I mean, he'll have to hit it on 3-1 because that'll be the point where the game will force him to level to 5, and at that point you're only getting 30% odds, I believe, to hit 1-cost headliners, so it's really not where you want to be. And ideally, these punk builds, they don't want to roll down the speed, they want to slow roll, because these guys want to be rolling every turn to make use of their punk value, and if you end up having to roll every turn on 0 gold, it's very hard to build that economy.
Yeah. Of course, and we see... This is one of my sort of more preferred boards to play as well. I love having that Heartsteel line, but just even when you're having a bad game, I feel like boards that generate economy for you just feel so good to have, and when you're getting these extra resources which you wouldn't have had in the first place, it just something about the optics of it, and something about the nice little eco feeling going on. This Krug round, obviously not too instrumental just now. We'll push YLCO into a nice little higher tax bracket here as he hits 33. Economy, getting a bunch of sentinels out of the orbs actually, so it could be quite nice with the front line that he already has set up to just throw in an Echo here. It does sell the Mordekaisers for econ, so won't be able to push for 4 sentinels just yet, and we'll be able to keep that 2 bruiser, 2 sentinel front line instead, as well as that Heartsteel, which is now stacking up.
Yeah, I mean, a slightly unfortunate itemization here. You know, you've already slammed that Even Shroud, you've slammed that Deathblade, or not slammed it, you've taken it from your augment, you're committed into that AD line, and the game has just dropped you an Ionic Spark. And if you look at what you could do with that glove, you know, QSS and JG, it's not any better. So not being able to slam these items, it's not too bad because you do have the Heartsteel in, so you don't mind losing too much. However, with the Heartsteel changes, you really do almost always want 5 Heartsteel in if you are going to play it at an early stage, because that's the only way you can really build up to those game-changing Heartsteel cash outs.
A semi-early Katarina headliner as well. It'll be interesting to see if they commit to that. Restart with the crowd diver if it's just kind of going to act as a strong unit. For now, will be just enough to collect them this win from this round, as Echo's wailing on the backline. Gragas not tanky enough to deal with all these 3 champions. Italy does pick up that win, and we'll see if that Katarina plays more of a essential role in that comp, or if he just sticks to that disco line. Obviously has quite nice Twisted Fate items and had a pretty okay disco board slowly building up, so if you can just hold on to some wins, keep high HP, and then rotate slowly into it, that would be lovely for him.
Yeah, YLCO here with some really interesting augment choices. Not anything that I think he'd love. He does look like he's thinking about Partial Ascension, has rerolled the other 2. Is sort of questioning what he wants to go for here. There isn't anything that really stands out that it's a must pick for him right now. You know, it looks like he did go for...
picked up as well.
Yeah. 5 Heartsteel here with Harm Assist and Crown Guard. I mean, 5 Heartsteel, generally you want to be losing. However, this board looks extremely strong, really. Looks like it might mix streak, but it is going to conserve a lot of HP, which is exactly where you want to be with Heartsteel, being almost 90 HP with 5 Heartsteel in already. This is a lovely spot.
Yeah, and with the Omnivamp and extra shielding coming in as well, it just means those losses won't feel as bad because you're taking out a few more units before you go, and it means that you just have a lot more time to collect those Heartsteel stacks up, get that loss streak really going, or as you said, just sort of win loss to make sure that you're making the most out of that before you ultimately cash in.
Absolutely, and this spread damage from the Senna is having a really hard time of taking down this Blitzcrank. Looks like she is going to finally be able to do it, but is it going to be soon enough? It just depends who's going to get the cast off first. Actually, neither of them get the cast off. Leothos does manage to just auto-attack down the Seraphine.
Yeah, and SJCP here just sitting comfortably at second spot. Obviously, this early Blitzcrank and 2-star in this set as well. Such a nice, strong frontline.
Yeah, that 2-star set is a phenomenal upgrade. It's just going to make a massive difference to this early game. It's going to conserve so much more HP, and it's just going to mean that you're going to end up going into stage 4 with a huge HP advantage over the rest of the players in the lobby.
Absolutely, and we see another Senna headliner in this lobby, another rapid fire Senna headliner as well. At that, sticking on 3 rapid fire just for now. Use of that Aphelios will a little bit more, so you see. Just does feel a bit like the weaker Heartsteel board in the lobby right now. Obviously not full Heartsteel, but it's a similar sort of style with that rapid fire backline, and not quite as strong of a front line as well. We'll be able to pick up a win here against Blue, but actually now that I say that, if Katarina gets another ult off, this could go quite badly. Just a couple more ults to center.
Very close.
Oh! A little bit more healing than I anticipated. I don't know where all that healing came from at the end, but the Katarina was able to just pick that one up at the end. So, as I said, I mean, it just feels like kind of a worse version of the Heartsteel board that we saw earlier, right? Which feels like it could do serious damage in this lobby.
Yeah, no, and I said at the start of the lobby, you know, a lot of people looked like they were angling those 4 cost lines. It does look like even more people are starting to angle those 4 cost lines. You know, Iblo, you know, even though he is carrying that Katarina right now, you look at the Ginsu Slam, you look at the Shojin Slam, those items do tend to lean more towards the disco, and whenever you look at the units he's holding on bench, it seems very clear that he is trying to angle that disco line and into some of these other boards that are trying to econ up and could potentially be contesting those 4 cost lines. It is going to be really interesting to see who hits, and especially whenever you have a lot of people contesting those 4 cost rerolls, you do have to roll on 4-2 because of how small the units pools are, and the fact that anybody could just hit a headliner and take 3 of them out from 1 roll. It makes a massive difference.
Absolutely, and as well as that, now that we are coming into so we're about 2 rounds away from most, about 4 rounds away from the last augment of the game as well, with these comps sort of solidifying themselves more, it feels like you're going to start to see people drop out who have either been force contesting things or playing a bit too hard with their economy. Nothing quite as bad as last game. Obviously, 3 rounds before this last game we had people sitting on 50 HP, so a much more even lobby, definitely, a much more contested lobby. While CO we do see dropping down to 55, about 2 rounds before Wolves, so perhaps not exactly where he wants to be, but if he's able to sort of turn this into a nice little roll down, a nice little bit of a win streak afterwards, and doesn't lose too much HP in the process, I think can still turn this one around.
Yeah, the only X here coming in with a quite, interesting board. He's got Superfan in, he's got... So typically you'd see Rageblade, Gunblade, that would be sort of kill itemization, potentially Twisted Fate, but then you've also got the BT, and then you've also got the Spark Slam. So this is a really interesting spot. It doesn't look like he's leaning towards any particular composition at the moment. Has taken Young, Wild and Free, so it's going to be pushing that win streaking advantage even more, and it really is going to put those players like YL down at the bottom. It's going to be tough because if Spat pops up on Carousel, he doesn't have first pick anymore.
We'll see. On taking loss here as well, so only JX just continuing that win streak. Obviously, we saw when that early sort of rapid fire Senna came in with the items as well. You pointed it out quite early on. It just was such a free ticket to holding on to this win streak. Sitting at a 10-game win streak now with fine economy, not lost a single round. You just feel like you're in such a good position as the only JX here, and with so many options to spec into as well. I mean, rapid fire, a comp which can scale incredibly hard as well. You don't necessarily feel like you're going to drop off ridiculously hard.
Yeah, definitely. Looking at this board, looks like this Cassante is looking to be sold in a second here. Probably will settle for this cash out and then start rolling. However, being 40 HP, 3 heart steal, you're not going to get a big cash out here. Your economy is maybe your only saving grace, but you're not even going to be able to roll. Well, I suppose you could roll in this round actually. Finding a Lucian though, that is a massive pull. Finding an early Lucian on level 7 with Vampirism, you've got Deathblade slammed already. Unfortunately doesn't have a bow with those 2 rods, because you really want to be saving those rods to find a Ginsus whenever you're playing a Lucian. Not having a bow is going to force you to probably hold those rods or potentially kill them off, and then it's going to make it even harder to find good Lucian itemization, so really not a lot going YL's way at the minute, although that early Lucian, it's pretty nice still.
Yeah, obviously you said not much going his way. It's still nice to see that 1% drop into your shop. I mean, it does have the option of kind of bringing in more Jazz champions as well. Jazz not quite what it used to be, but just to have that early game extra HP, extra damage could feel quite nice. You see a couple of rapid fire comps going head to head here, a couple of partial comps as well. This absolute behemoth of a Blitzcrank could be enough just to tank out, but Akali making sure to clear out the Aphelios on her own, which means that Blitzcrank won't be able to 1v4 this lobby, as we are now heading into the stage of the game where things are getting a little bit dangerous for some of our players. Obviously we see YLCO drop down to 26 HP now, even after picking up that Lucian. Marvello on 36, Blue on 43. The gaps are starting to spread a little bit more, and the only JX just pushing his lead further and further up on the other side.
Yeah, and it'll be really interesting to see what YL comes out with here. However, you're looking at Iblo right now, he is committed to this disco board like I suspected. However, he hasn't hit a lot. He's rolled all the way down to 0. He recognized that he probably had to roll on 4-2 regardless of his economy because of how contested 4 costs could potentially be in this lobby. However, just hasn't hit any sort of good frontline and is now overrolled slightly. He has a Blitzcrank in shop, he has an Echo in shop, forced to lock shop, and still isn't going to be able to buy it next turn even if he wins the round. So this is a very unfortunate spot to be in, and it's going to be really tough being on 43 HP and having to lock shop for probably 2 rounds.
Yeah, I agree, but I suppose silver lining, Disco Blitzcrank, you're getting at least some kind of strong front line, and you can swap out those items from the Tom Kench onto this Blitzcrank, which hopefully means that you can start at least reducing these losses down a little bit. Having said that, down to 40 HP now, you're really gonna have to start thinking about just praying that you hit with the little economy that you have.
Yeah, meeting the kill 3 on the other side at this point is really unlucky. You would have loved to play it a few turns earlier whenever you didn't have your board spite. It looks like he has just hit this turn as well. That's a triple combat augment kill 3. Doesn't have the gunblade, but has the vampirism to give that healing through through a different source. And it's very hard to see what he can do this lobby to bring it back.
Absolutely, yeah. One thing I did kind of want to run by me, most as like some more experienced player, is there's a lot of debate over like which front lines are strongest, and obviously there's easier answers where it's like, well, it's just whichever one fits your comp best, right? But I think in general, if you're just looking at a sort of flat board, do you think you prefer the Sentinel front lines, these Guardian front lines, these Bruiser front lines, a mix of all of them? What kind of is your pick of the pot?
they're all fairly similar. They all do fairly reasonable effects. I think Sentinel probably is the strongest effect of them all. However, having said that, it's just whatever fits your board, because obviously something like Sentinels don't have any 5 costs, whereas the Guardian or Bruisers do have 5 costs. You've also got to take into consider unit quality whenever you're thinking about things like that. But yeah, typically it would be Sentinels.
Absolutely, and I suppose, yeah, with just the units available as well, Blitzcrank being such a highly contested unit across so many boards, even if you're not really going for that disco comp, just having, you know, like a 2-4 Sentinel frontline, and just works so well with so many tank items.
Iblo does manage to find a Blitzcrank with a defensive item, which is quite a nice pickup. However, does not manage to get Ziggs, which would have also been a lovely pickup. Ziggs with Rod. That does in fact get picked up, and Duo managed to also find a defensive item.
And sitting just on that 18 HP now, that Blitzcrank. Defensive item quite nice, but obviously you won't have the economy to even try and force into something like a Blitz 3 or whatever. We look now at the Punk reroll board, which is starting to gain a little bit of steam. Only 3 stars are the 2 backline carriers right now. You have the Caitlyn in for a little bit of that rapid fire buff as well, but Jinx being on the Punk headliner does mean that if you don't get the emblem here, you're kind of wasting it a little bit. I don't really want to say wasting, but it's more so just you're losing out on a free trait, right?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely on the right lines. Jinx headliner is quite interesting, actually. A lot of pro players will tell you that something like a rapid fire Jinx is better than the Punk Jinx, and they would be correct. However, the thing they don't consider is that if you can manage to find that Punk emblem, the 6 Punk does end up capping higher than the rapid fire Jinx, which especially if you can find something like a Lucian to give the rapid fire with the Punk emblem, works really well for the AD. That can be a way that AshQ here could cap out his board and manage to make a comeback here. You know, it does look like he is probably playing for top 4. He's very far behind the curve of where you'd like to be with a Punk board right now, not having any 3-star frontliners. If he can manage to hit them and stabilize, we could see him make it all the way into the late stages of stage 5, I think, maybe stage 6. But the problem is the Punk board, if you don't have enough HP going into stage 5, it is very hard to win out games just because of the fact that you are sacrificing a lot in the late game for a very strong early game.
Yeah, and possibly a little bit unlucky in that round. Obviously, Lulu getting that perfectly timed polymorph meant that Jinx couldn't clean up those last few members, and takes quite a hefty loss in the end. As we swap over now to this disco board that we saw earlier, that Blitzcrank becoming a much heftier frontliner with the Heartsteel and the Gargoyles both available. Gets 2 casts of his ult off, which means that PF gets 3 of his own, but still not quite enough, and we take a massive loss here. It blew all the way down to 3 HP, so just about surviving, but one more will be fatal. Does at least make it to the Raptors round, that being said.
Yeah, Iblo really playing a disco board from a non-typical disco spot. You know, normally you'd like to have those economy augments to make sure you can hit your disco board and then push levels, you know, or maybe playing from a win streaking position where you have that HP conserved, you know, maybe forcing disco from a spot that maybe shouldn't be played from disco. However, having said that, if he had hit on 4-2, this would be a very different situation, which is, you know, the unfortunate nature of this set, where if you just hit that headliner, it does solve all your problems a lot of the time.
Yeah. Absolutely. A little KD7 board in front of my eyes. I feel like I don't see this as much nowadays. Obviously, I mean, KDA was a bit of a thorn in my side for quite some time, so not entirely complaining. This is quite a devious little Blitzcrank as well. Has that Crown Guard with the double Warmogs, meaning just that shield gets so much extra value as well, being buffed by the 2 items next to it. Picking up the Zed headliner as well.
Yeah, this is going to be a massive cash out, you know, getting the Edge of Night on to that Zed. You know, getting a BT on the Zed does end up slamming the Ginsus, interestingly. Maybe just... He does seem to want to have board strength now, but I wonder if that was necessary, especially whenever you're considering you are going to lose this round anyway. Maybe just trying to see what you can get on that next carousel. Having a Ginsus on that Zed maybe just isn't ideal. It is going to prevent you. It's essentially like you're playing a 2-item Zed, realistically. However, getting a 244 cash out, I mean, this could just change the game completely. And, you know, the HP down at the bottom, you know, we have 5 players all within 20 health of each other. Iblo still in a fight. No idea how that's going to end. You know, has maybe not an ideal board, but...
Ooh, yeah. Taking quite a hefty loss in the end, it seems. Down to -13, so Iblo will take 8th place in that lobby. Ashku survives another day. Obviously 2 rounds left until next carousel. All these players down at the bottom will be hoping they can survive just a little bit more to claim one of those top 4 spots. You see, no 3-star of the Pantheon. Wasn't able to hit the emblem, so just got rid of the Vi altogether. And a couple of 1-star 4 costs, not really looking too strong.
It's very unfortunate here, you know, not hitting the Vi, not hitting the Pantheon. You know, I think he would have wanted the Vi if he could have gotten it. Then maybe you could have played for hitting an emblem off of Carousel. However, deciding he just wants to move items over to this Pantheon and try and 3-star the extra gold he'll get from the Vi, then missing the Pantheon as well, and it does look like this is unfortunately going to be Ashku's end. You know, a slightly unfortunate Punk Gim, you know, maybe had to roll a bit more than he wanted to on 3-1 to find that Jinx headliner, considering where his economy was at. So, yeah, it happens.
Yeah, between all that, poor Ashku forced to watch a little finisher live on stream. Never a good feeling having to watch yourself taken out like that, but still, taking 7th place, was able to just about escape that last spot. SJ, CT, and YLCO. Marvello even, if he takes a bit of a heavier loss, all in quite dangerous spots right now. The top 3 in the lobby have cemented a massive lead right now, so we'll hopefully be able to turn that into holding on to those 3 positions for themselves.
Yeah, and really interesting board here from Guido. Looks like that is... It almost looks like Z itemization, but I'd suspect it's probably more likely to be an Ares itemization in this sort of setup with what his board is. It's probably obviously way too lit to pivot into something like an Ezreal. Doesn't have full 3-star items on any of his carries, it looks like. You know, it is going to be a tough... It's going to be tough for the next couple of rounds. However, I'd suspect by about stage 6-1, he will have a very strong board, having that Lulu 3 once you get items. He just needs to settle his board a little bit.
Absolutely, yeah. We do say goodbye to 2 more players in the lobby, so immediately before this carousel, our final 4 are cemented. YLCO will be happy to claim that extra point for himself. The other 3, especially on 6969, currently on that hot streak. Only JX tanking a few losses now with that early game start. There was a Punk emblem on the carousel. It's really sad to see.
Just twisting the knife.
Hopefully,
just has a way with it.
Hopefully they weren't forced to see that. You know, maybe they were oblivious to the situation around them. But we'll see how this turns out. This Lucian now, obviously, still just a 1-star. Does have that second one available on the bench. So if they were able to 2-star, that would be such a massive power buff. But does have a couple of 5 costs in, as well as that headliner Z with the Thieves' Gloves, with not terrible items for this round. Does have at least the Edge of Night available.
Yeah, it does look like YLCO has recognized that his win condition is probably hitting a 2-star of one of these 5 costs, and then potentially moving items onto whatever one he 2-stars, if it's maybe the Kiana or the Yorick, but doesn't manage to hit any of them, and just has to sit and pray that this is good enough. You know, the Lucian does have a full set of items. He will stack into this skill into this fight. He will skill better than this Ahri, but it's a question of whether the front line can just hold out long enough for this Lucian. You know, 15 seconds in, they're doing a really good job. You know, the Ahri, the Akali is still out there doing work. It doesn't take down the Lucian in time, and Zed does tend to win these 1v1s, even with a Thieves' Gloves itemization.
Good, yeah, but well, we'll lead to another day here, so one last chance at finding these 2 stars as well. Obviously, if he's able to win more round, he'll be able to make it to the final PvE phase. Probably that he'll be seeing if he isn't able to 2-star any of them. Yorick picked up here will decrease those odds for him as well. Just a couple of 5 costs being picked up, sold around, trying to hit extra Yoricks. I assume he's buying everything you can see. That 3-star Kale though, with a pretty useful front line. Obviously, Gnar not the tankiest just individually, but has a few items which mean he can last a bit longer with that transformation plus the Sterex. Well,
yeah, no, he's really rolling down to try and find that 3-star Kaiser, not hitting it unfortunately. However, the rest of the board does find an Alawi. Alawi, whenever you have an augment like LVP, LVP does a lot of the time force you to sacrifice positioning in order to facilitate that LVP, which means you end up sacrificing, you know, maybe 1/2 of the space on 1/2 of the board. Those tentacles do allow you to make use, still contest that space without sacrificing your LDP, which is very nice.
Absolutely, as we get to see a little bit of a look around at the lobby, while obviously taken out, so we do have our final 3 here on 6-9. 6-9 has been on a rampage so far. Beedwo is holding onto this KDA Spellweaver line that he's built together. Does have a few kind of nice units. 3-star Lulu will be printing out damage on her own, but the problem is not really many adjacent carries to buff with the attack speed. I mean, has the Seraphine, but outside of that, not really doing too much with the hyper buff. Echo, quite useful in his own right, but the 1-star Alawi, if they could 2-star, that would make such a difference, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, this game really is on a knife edge for Beedwo. He really wants that 3-star Seraphine. He has 40 gold. He really wants this 2-star Alawi. You know, there are so many big upgrades that could completely change the game. Also, on 69 there in first place. Does look like he just found the 3-star Mordekaiser there with that upgrade. Indeed, he did. That could be the game-winning upgrade. Looking at these boards, you know, having that 3-star Mordekaiser, especially whenever you have a kill with 2 Ginsus, buying all that time for those Ginsuses to stack is just monstrous.
Absolutely. We see, sort of get a feel for how strong Beedwo's comp is here. To the rest of the lobby. It's hard for me to keep a straight face when I see this Lulu just absolutely pumping in the background. Look at that. Boom.
Yeah.
Boom. Boom. Getting that big polymorph off as well does create so much space for the team, and Seraphine, when she's able to get these multicasts off, is quite big, but Akali right now still pretty much sitting at full HP, and Seraphine, the last man standing, will not be enough. But Beedwo does have a couple of losses left in him before he's completely out of the game, so we'll be begging he hits at least the 3-star Seraphine. Not really much else for him to change into, obviously just starring up his Alawi. We do see a 2-star Akali come in for on 6969 here, 3-star Mordekaiser, and a 3rd item on his Gnar. Does mean there's just so much strength around the lobby, and with 11 wins in a row, including wins against both the remaining players in the lobby, you feel something big has to happen to knock him off that top spot.
Yeah, I mean, the saving grace is that he does only have 9 gold right now. You know, the chances that he could push level 9, I mean, he will probably get to level 9, but it won't be anytime soon, which does buy time for the other players to potentially find something to just about stabilize them in this fight. Although up against 3 fully itemized 3-stars, you know, very strong itemization, triple combat augments, it's really hard to see how this could go wrong on 69 at the minute.
Quickly, and another one of these, man. Come on, let's have some shame.
Yeah.
Have to watch their 5-second cutscene just so you can get into the next lobby. Still, Beedwo won't be too displeased with 3rd place, was able to outlast YLCO as well. We come down to the last 2 players in the lobby on 6969. The current favourite, obviously. JX, 2-starring Seraphine won't change too much about that lobby as well.
Yeah, really unlucky from Beedwo there, going out in that 3rd place. You know, didn't manage to find the Seraphine, didn't manage to find the Alawi. Alawi's a little more unfortunate than the Seraphine. Did end up pushing levels to try and strengthen his board, so did run the risk of not hitting that Seraphine. However, still rolling all that gold and being stuck on 7 Seraphines for so long, it's really not what you'd expect.
We come now into the next battle. We're going to see these 2 face up quite often, I fear.
Yeah, I think we may be in for a 7-1 here.
Absolutely in. Akali now is putting quite a bit of work. Mordekaiser just about surviving enough to get one last ult off, which means that the Gnar is able to get a few more stuns in, and quite a hefty win in the end of 4 minutes. Getting through the only JX, dropping down to 29 HP. Couple more rounds left in him. See if he's able to do anything major to turn this one on its head.
Yeah, I mean, whenever you actually look at what's happening in these fights, it is still very close between these 2 players. You know, having this sort of KDA board up against this kill board, Yari bursts through the Mordekaiser very quickly. Ari obviously excels at single target damage, and if that kill can get into the backline, we did say that he has the vampirism healing. That's not going to kick in, but very much, because he is still on 63 HP. It will be a problem later, assuming that he can start to turn some of these fights around. However, matchup wise, these fights are much closer than what they are right now, especially having that Alawi on bench. If you can manage to find that 2-star Alawi, it could make a massive difference.
Absolutely, and we'll see just a little bit of reshuffling here of the positioning. Goes Akali onto the right side, keeps those tentacles on the left to sort of have the Chaos focus be on the weaker units for the start of this fight, but that does also mean she kind of gets free reign to start stacking that Ginsus here. Akali gets 2 ults down, but just that healing, meaning the KO never even drops under full HP. The lost going to be even heavier this time than last, and the only JX, only one loss left in him before he gets knocked out of this one. Obviously second place, nothing to complain about, but will be even better for on 6969.
Yeah, I mean, we said that the kill wasn't healing up, and the kill wasn't healing up that much, but the problem is the kill's just not taking damage, and that's a result of the LDP, you know, sharing the kill and the Mordekaiser sharing stats, both being utilizing the AP stat very well, but also sharing, you know, giving those armor buffs over to the kill, making her more resistant to the damage in the first place, just means she doesn't have to heal up in the first place.
Yeah, and I mean, what major change I suppose the 2-star Alawi has dropped in now, but I just don't think it'll be enough. That front line, just not enough damage available in this comp to clear through all these champions. Mordekaiser giving his ult off stall out so long, meaning he outlasts the Alawi, outlasts the other frontliners, echo the drops. Collie can get one big ult here, maybe can look to do something, but Nara just getting multiple stuns back to back, and that will be the final loss for the Oni JX. On 6969 picks up a huge win to give themselves 9 points going into the next game. Fantastically. And our beautiful faces are back on screen. I know you guys must have missed us during that little 40 minutes that we just went through. The scores are being updated as we speak as well, so we'll come back after the break to go through that. But Chris, just before we leave, any thoughts on how that game went real quick? Anything again out of the ordinary? Anything you sort of picked up on specifically that you wanted to talk about?
I just want to give credit to on 6969. You know, that was really, really well played game. You know, hitting that kill 3 early is very lucky, but also recognizing that Mordekaiser 3 is your win condition a lot of the time here. Recognizing that he also could go for the NAR 3 simultaneously. He didn't sacrifice any economy going for that NAR 3. It's not like he was waiting to leveling up for that NAR 3. That's something that you don't see a lot of players doing, and recognizing that he did have the items for it. So I just want to give props to him.
Absolutely, and once again, congratulations to on 6969. It picks up 9 points there. Obviously got 8 in their first game as well, so sitting on 17 from a total possible 18 must feel fantastic coming out of those first 2 games. A really, really quick start to these finals. Now we are going to head off onto a short 5-minute break yet again. When we come back, we will have our final game of the day and hopefully an interview from one of our top players. Thank you.
No, they're not. Super different and only fans putting up this round of
Everyone, if you hate snakes, then this snake will end it here for the double kill win from Kyrie on the bright side of this fight. Cancel fast forward and cheating.
Good evening, everyone, and good night, everyone. Welcome back to the University Esports UK and Republic of Ireland Spring 2024 Teamfight Tactics Season Round 1 Game 3 Preview. I'm trying to think what other words I can add to that title every time I come back. Anyway, we're fantastically happy to have you back here as we are about to do our preparations for the final game of the day. Obviously, this is not the end of the finals. Next week, at the same time, we will have 3 more lobbies set up, which will determine the ultimate winner of the tournament. Now, we've been busy while you've all been away. Me and Chris over here, through mostly my own coercion, have taken a little test because I feel like the questions weren't breaking through enough. So we took a little couples quiz, which was provided to me by my good friend Luca Lika. Shout out to Luca, Prime League mid laner. So I'm here to reveal the actual answers that we got, and I'm here to reveal what couple we are. Chris, any guesses before I get to this? Given that this is not a scripted bit at all.
No idea. You know, this relationship's very new to me. I'm not sure if I'm like ready for something serious or not.
Yeah. Well, for any fans of American sitcoms, this will be a fantastic bit of news for them because we are. And to be fair, I didn't say who is who, so we can figure that out amongst ourselves. But we are very clearly Amy Sosa and Jonas Sims from Superstore, which is a show that I'll be completely honest, I've watched maybe like 3 or 4 episodes of, but it's been funny every time I've watched it, so I'm happy with that. I feel like it's a good little relationship that we have between each other. Now, my waffle out of the way. We do have a game little ready for us to fly into. So, Chris, without further ado, I'm going to send us into our third and final game of the day with the help of our lovely production team.
And into the stage 1, it does look like we have been thrown into pot of gold, so probably a very standard game of TFT, nothing super, you know, unexpected will be happening. Might benefit those compositions, those 4-cost compositions that can cap out their boards a little bit more, but they still do have to get to that 6-1 stage for that to be relevant. However, looking at the board here from only JX, having, you know, one of our players who is on the cut right now, he is trying to just tip himself over the edge into that top 8 on 9 points currently. So got a good start though. 2 2-stars already with that headliner Olaf, could be really strong.
brutally, and that Bruiser frontline so early in the game, especially if you get an augment that is so nicely centered around it. Heavy hitters, etc. I know there was a comp a while back, I'm not sure if it's still a thing with the heavy hitters where you just force 6 Bruisers very early in the game, then rotate into like Ezreal, Karthus, Akali, etc. Which might be a little bit different now, but it was just very fun to build, and if you found your carries early, it felt like it could scale incredibly well.
Yeah, and the only JX here, I was about to say, you know, had that Disco Nami, could have, if he found a Gragas, potentially play some kind of Bruiser Disco board with that Gunblade on bench. However, has gone the complete opposite direction. Now he's playing Rapid Fire with this Bruiser frontline and has slammed BT instead. It's a little bit awkward, however, is trying to play strongest forward now with that Escort quest, getting 3 gold per win, just trying to push his advantage a lot, and especially saying he is a player on the cut right now. You know, he doesn't need to go for first to win. He probably needs third, I would imagine, probably second to be sure. Doesn't need first. I'd say, you know, I'd say he's more than likely to make it if he gets fourth. Third is probably, I would say, in as well. So really trying to, you know, not just thinking about this week, but thinking about the future weeks and trying to get as many points as possible.
Yeah, of course. And just as a reminder to everyone watching, we'll just go through the list of the players in the lobby to see how they stand so far. It's obviously the only JX currently on 9 points out of a possible 18. Humble Dog sitting on a clean 4 points out of a possible 18. YEUS, so many on 9, is currently sitting on 16. Second place overall in the standings so far. Ponka, our own NTU favorite, is sitting on 7 points, so quite a rough start for a player that came in as the second seed. Tunso Cool right now on 13 points in 6th place. YLCO right now on 15 points in 3rd place overall. And Urchawint right now sitting on 5 points. And last but not least, Giatti is on 11 points. So a couple of players here fighting for those top spots. Obviously, aside from On6969, we do have 2nd and 3rd place, just missing out on that 1st place slot, who's in the other lobby. But a lot to play for still here. As you mentioned, it's only currently 14 points between 1st and last, right? Which means technically still anyone's game.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially whenever you consider that the disparity between going 8th and going 1st is bigger than a normal tournament. You know, you get 9 points for going 1st and 1 for going 8th. You know, it does help you close that gap if you are further behind. However, it's obviously not an ideal position to be in. It does look like our 200 streakers are going to meet for a fight here. You know, GS Slam on the Evelyn really isn't ideal. However, does settle for it, trying to make sure he has good item economy going into the later stages. However, it does mean that he has to give up this win streak over to the Heartsteel board on the other side, which has an early Heartsteel Aphelios with IE and open tier. You know, that's phenomenal potential Ezreal itemization and direct early Heartsteel direction.
My apologies. I think one of the things we will be focusing on as well as we look forward is the fact that if we are to head into the later stages of the tournament and the players are more closely tied on points, a tiebreaker situation is quite likely often in tournaments that have less games like this. So if that is the case, then the team, or the player, my apologies, the player with the most overall points throughout the entire Swiss stage and playoff bracket will then take the win. So just a thing to keep an eye on as we head into the later stages of the tournament.
Yeah, and looks like we have 2 people here with really good early Heartsteel direction. You know, we see open tier, red buff already slammed, open tier and open glove. That could, with the rich get richer, you know, one of those economy augments that you do tend to need whenever you're trying to angle the Heartsteel line. Another player here trying to angle Heartsteel at the minute, you know, does have a very, you know, wide array of options he can choose from. However, looks like he's trying to go Heartsteel. Not sure if it's the best play, you know, considering playing Heartsteel from a lost streaking position. However, does have that patient study to try and subsidize the economy that is lost a little bit.
Absolutely, and oh, bye. Yeah, as you mentioned, just has that available just to make sure he's not losing too much of this play. Luckily, going into Urchawind here as well, quite a weak board, so he'll only really tank 3-unit, maybe even 2-unit loss if he's able to just knock down his Cassante with one more auto, so ends up not losing too much of that. So
yeah, really nice from Lyell here. He ended up selling his board, keeping the only two Heartsteel units he needed for that matchup specifically. Ended up getting it, and it's going to really change the dynamics of this lobby. We're going to have a really poor lobby here. Only one player on 5 loss streak, one player on 5 win streak. You know, although a lot of our other players like YEUW here, you know, he has an early 4 Sennas. I was going to say an early 2-star Senna. He has 4 Sennas, a Nashor's Tooth, and a Rod and open belt on bench with a combat augment as well. You know, this is one of the best spots I've seen all day.
yeah, absolutely. Do we see people lose PV rounds in comp play? Is this something that
Not
you've
unless you're
experienced?
me. I never see anybody but me lose them.
Of course. There must be some strategic advantage that you're just capitalizing off that nobody else knows about.
Carousel priority. Yeah,
Of course.
That's the reason.
Knock yourself down a
Definitely
few
not
picks.
my own incompetence.
Of course. We see now this comp starting to take a bit more shape. Considering the options off the bench here.
Humble Dog in a really, really good position here. Has the, you know, open bow on bench, blue buff, Infinity Edge slammed, 100 streaking with Heartsteel. Well, not technically doesn't have Heartsteel in right now, but has that early Heartsteel direction. You know, finds a 2-star Gnar as well. Does look like he's considering slamming items, although Nashor's Tooth, Sunfire, Titans, they're not things you'd love to slam here, but potentially you could just... well, I was going to say you slam the Sunfire potentially, however, if you're trying to go for that red buff on Nezreal, it's not something you really want.
Yeah, absolutely. And choosing not to go for the Mordekaiser here, just picking up that 2-star Gnar, picking up the victory, obviously enough gold to just take on 240 econ, means that he'll have that nice little bit of boost going to the next stage. See Ponka just tanking a little bit of damage there, heading into the second augments of the game. We saw Portable Forge and Contagion. What are you going for here, Chris?
Oh, well, it looks like he
Well,
has...
the decision has been made for the Portable Forge.
Sonya's is really interesting. I mean, you could argue there's a Zac or a Jax angle here. However, without any EDM units, that seems very far away. The only thing that would suggest that would be the itemization potentially. However, it does settle for a Mogul's Mail. It's really not what he was looking for whenever he picked Portable Forge. You were looking for one of those more powerful ones like Death's Defiance potentially. Although it's really hard to say what he was looking for specifically. Perhaps a tank item is more likely. You know, getting an economy item on 3-2 is really not where you want to be, but just felt like all of his other options just weren't great.
Yeah, absolutely. And get that Mogul's Mail on the Evelyn as well. Champion which you don't really see tanking those 40 hits too often. We can see if you can capitalize and build off that. Maybe build a little bit of a stronger front line. Obviously that BT will give it enough sustain to maybe hold out, but with all those units targeting now, not too bad. Half HP. Just needs to tank a few more shots. Does get a 2 gold, so not terrible there. At least makes a little bit off that loss.
Yeah. And on the other side here, we see the only JX with that Zed, has a BT on him already. Senna with that red buff. You know, definitely going to be playing towards that Heartsteel line. However, hitting the Zed so early, along with the Senna headliner to stabilize your board throughout this stage 3, is just going to be so strong for him. You know, he's probably going to be going into stage 4 with about 90 HP at least, if not still continuing this 100 streak.
Yeah. We'll be looking for the KO3 here as well, and YLCO's lobby will be hoping to hit that early as well, because he's down to 51 HP already before Carousel, before Wolves. Not in the greatest spot in terms of how he's doing so far, but does have a little bit of time to play with before he has to really start panicking.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting whether or not he wants to go for kill. You know, we see he currently has 5 kills, but, you know, looking at those items, you know, Shojin isn't a typical kill item. It does work. It's not terrible. However, perhaps down to 40 health, he feels that he just has to go for this kill. Although conserving gold, still on 50 gold, not wanting to roll down, you know, it'd be interesting to see whether or not that pays off, because it does suggest that he's trying to go for a much higher cap board, not trying to play for those top 4s. However, it's very risky style, as it could end up going 8th.
Yeah, I suppose the only downside as well to the Shojin is that obviously you're not really getting the mana while your ult is active. It's just making sure they have a bit more uptime on that spell, because between casts you're wasting a lot less time. But as you said, probably just trying to get down as much onto the board as possible so he doesn't get sent out in these early stages. Because we've seen, I think so far, 4 people among all the lobbies get knocked out before Raptor stage. And YLCO is at the lowest that we've seen at this stage in the game.
I mean, I would definitely say, in terms of lobby tempo, this has definitely been the strongest lobby we've seen so far. You know, I don't mean in sort of terms of player skills and means people are playing better. I mean more so that, you know, the units they've hit have just been, their boards they are hitting, they're just so much stronger than what we have seen throughout the rest of the day. You know, we've seen many Senna headliners, you know, a couple of people with, I mean, is it 3 people with Senna? 2-star Sennas on their board. People with early Heartsteel, economy augments, you know. It's going to be a much tougher lobby to get through.
Yeah, we see a sort of variation of the country executional line here as well. Has a Jinxon is with a bit of extra damage, but doesn't seem too strong at all. Tunso cool in a okay spot anyway, so can probably just chill around once they hit level 7, start rolling for those Samiras if it's something they really want to spec into, or for now it might just be a little bit of a placeholder comp as well. Early Blitzcrank, but not much space to put it in without losing something that you don't want to give up.
Yeah, Humble Dog here, trying to continue this 100 streak into stage 4 with Heartsteel. Realistically, it's going to be really hard to see how Humble Dog could not top 4 from this position. You know, I think he's definitely the favourite to win the lobby from this point. You know, being 100 health, going into stage 4, playing that Heartsteel line, as long as he can hit either a 2-star Ezreal or 2-star Zed, and especially if he can hit them early, then stop rolling, save up gold, and just continue losing through stage 4, because he has the HP, and he's going to then get a massive Heartsteel cash out and can play for that first place. Meanwhile, the rest of the lobby are scrapping to try and just not go bot 4.
Yeah, and of course for Humble Dog, somebody who is currently second last in the standings after his first 2 games, getting a high scoring game here could be absolutely instrumental in making sure that they finish in a prize spot. Still on 100 HP after 10 fighting rounds, made it all the way to Wolves without tanking a single hit, so we'll be quite happy with how the lobby's gone so far.
And we are seeing the Executioner line come in, it is forcing it from 2-1, you know. Maybe not something that people have been playing a lot of recently. However, the Executioner line has become a little bit more popular again. I recently saw it piloted by Dishso on his way to winning North American finals, and is on his way to Worlds. He did run an Executioner comp to a 2nd place. However, it's just not something that has been popular in the meta recently, purely because of just the fact that everything else has been buffed, and it sort of got indirectly hit by a lot of those Twin Terror nerfs whenever that Twin Terror comp was, you know, tearing everything apart. However, it also means that, you know, the line is a lot more uncontested because people just aren't looking for it as often.
Hit a 1% Sona there, but no real space for it in the comp, sadly, so having to pass up on that one. Getting the 2-star Vex as well, so a little bit more strength in that backline for Tunso cool. Still above half HP, so not too worried just yet, but obviously we would like to see some more strength in the top. The headliner set does provide a bit more time for those backline executioners to start getting those spells in as well and picking up those low HP targets.
Yeah, the only JX on the other side looks like he rolled on 4-1, recognizing that Heartsteel is probably going to be 3-way contested. This lobby wanted to hit first, didn't manage to find any headliners, and he is on 0 gold now. You know, this is a really, really dire spot from him. You know, he has that HP buffer, however, not having any economy. You know, it looks like he bought the Karthus on his bench and didn't get it in time as well. It's really unfortunate.
Absolutely, and big win in the end there for Tunso Cool now. Keeping himself in that top half of the lobby as we move into the last augment stage of the game. Humble Dog still undefeated. On the other side of the lobby, Ponka and Urtrawint suffering a little bit. Two players who
what
not
a
had
shot.
the greatest success today, but immediate 2-star Ezreal coming out. Obviously, no headliner just yet, but with best in slot as well on that champion, Urtrawint could start to see some big wins coming in. Obviously, if he's able to just bolster up that front line a little bit more.
Yeah, no, still doesn't have a headliner in, and is one off that 2-star Zed as well. You really feel like he sort of needs to roll to stabilize this board. He's playing Heartsteel on 36 HP with economy augments, you know, not a lot of combat part there. Did manage to find an Aegis on a dummy, which is by far the best support item at the minute, giving that extra attack speed and armor to the front line. However, will probably be stable up until 4-5, I'd imagine, but then you might start running into some problems.
Obviously, did just land that headliner and that as well to bump up to 4 big shots. Will give that Ezreal a bit more power behind these ults. I guess those crits as well be able to retrieve, but that jump from the Ezreal, just a little bit grief, maybe dashed into the 3 executioners and got 1 tap on the back. Should still have enough damage though with that MF and Aphelios on the backline. Karthus won't get another cast off, so we'll just clean this one.
Yeah, not greeting that headliner is key this fight. You know, the MF, without that headliner MF almost certainly would have been lost due to that sort of Ezreal tried to grief him, you know, not his fault, but it happens sometimes.
And Disco board with Illusion.
Yeah, really interesting pivot here. It's hard to say where this went. Obviously this was the Kale board. We saw previously, thought he might be going towards Kale, although without good items has obviously decided against it. Has that red buff on the Lucian. Interesting to see whether or not he's going to be playing towards this Disco line or whether he might be looking towards something like a Lucian line. Right now he's playing a combination of the two, which is really interesting. I haven't seen a lot of this before. However, generally you want something like a red buff on either your Lucian or your Twisted Fate. You know, if you are going to play Disco, you would want it on a Twisted Fate so you can spread out that anti-heal on the targets that the Twisted Fate is hitting. However, if you play towards the Lucian board, you're obviously going to want the extra attack speed.
It will be interesting to see how much they commit to this, or if it's something where they will eventually pick one of these board lines, like the Disco, as you mentioned, or force you more into the Lucian comp. Obviously, a lot of sort of just small traits being added in. You got the 2 Jazz, 2 Bruiser, 2 Dazzler, 2 Rapid Fire, 2 Sentinel. You throw in an Echo, you swap that into a 2 true damage as well on top of it. So just kind of activating a lot of different traits, making sure all those units have different power in different areas.
Yeah, no, a really good job of, you know, rolling down, seeing what he hits, and making the best board he possibly can out of it, rather than forcing a specific comp. So he's done a really good job of stabilizing his board.
With this next carousel leading us into the Raptor stage. Ponka in severe danger here, a player who we saw get knocked out quite early like this in the first game of the day as well.
Yeah. Why you here? Hitting that Senna 3, that's going to be really tough for the lobby. You know, unfortunately has quite a rough KDA pattern. Normally you would want to sort of frontline something whenever you're playing a Senna, just so that the opponents tend to clump around the one frontliner, so you can maximize the value out of your ultimates. You know, so not having that is quite unfortunate.
Yeah, but I mean, again, just sticking onto so many of these different traits. That Superfan giving the best in slot for the Senna with that 3-star, with that headliner, with the true damage as well. Taking on the Rapid Fire because of the headliner. Just so strong individually as a unit and completely untouched in these lobbies as well.
Yeah, and coming up against a 1-star Ari on the other side, you just have to imagine it's not going to even be close, and you see the Senna just one-shotting the Ari. You know, Senna is by far the most powerful of the 2 cost comps, and you know, if you manage to get the if you can manage to push levels to level 9, or if you can manage to hit a 3-star Echo, which is very, very difficult in the current meta, but still sometimes happens, that's how you see these Senna boards really win lobbies. But Ponka here manages to hit
was able to
that
win the last
2-star
round
Vega.
as well before getting into that 2-star Vega, which means hopefully we'll be able to start building up a little bit of a streak going on here to make sure they don't drop into that dangerous 1-loss territory. Obviously able to hit the Yorick relatively early as well, meaning that that 5 pentakill is in play. Won't be able to hit that 3-star Mordekaiser in their current state, but having 2 stars on the Vega as well to have that sort of extra carry available, and 1 away from the 2-star Karthus could be.
Yeah, really greeting this Aegis value, getting all his units behind it. Still doesn't have an ideal headliner, is just holding Mordekaiser temporarily here. It's not even a pentakill one. So, but coming up against this 1-star Ari again, it's getting really close for this Ari board. Going down. This is going to be down to 1 life for this Ari board.
Yeah, and that card result ended up being actually quite useful, clearing off 3 members, including the Ari, including Serafin as well. So see that, 3-star Samira was actually hit, so they did commit to that country line, were able to hit the headliner, the Executioner headliner in their hand, so could possibly look for 6 Executioner here, I assume, or they might just slide out the Twitch and throw in a card instead.
Yeah, I mean, typically with Executioners, you almost always want to get that 6 Executioner in if you can. Also, I imagine we're going to have a massive power spike here, having 3 carries here with 2 items on them. Getting the 3rd item on 2 of them here is going to make a massive deal, and that duplicator is going to be a massive deal. If he can manage to 3-star this Vex, that could be the other way that he wins this game.
Remember the tier here as well, just making sure to tick over that Samira into the realm of 100% crit. Obviously, had the opportunity to make a jeweled gauntlet possibly for the Vex as well, but I think just valuing too much getting that full build on the main carry of the Samira right now with Ginsu's, as well as the damage coming from the Hodge and the Infinity Edge, plus the Executioner buff on top. So much for her.
Yeah, and in the end decides against going for the 3-star Vex. Understandably he's very far off of it. Not his fault. The game just didn't give it to him. And just wants to try and conserve as much HP, which is very understandable, being on that 20 health. However, spending that duplicator to try and roll gold to find this Executioner, very unfortunately missed. However, it's again up against the 1-star Ari, and just being on that 1-star Ari for so long in a lobby this stacked, it's not his fault. He played towards the Ari, the game didn't give it to him. It does happen sometimes where you're just forced into a line early on because of your itemization, and the game just doesn't give it to you.
Yeah, and a tough loss for Jetty here, who was sitting at 7th before this game started. Will definitely take a hit off that 8th place. But overall, still not a terrible first day for them, picking up 12 points out of that possible 27, so still a lot of room to work with. Merchant here, currently on a 5-game win streak. With that lovely little bruiser frontline, we saw that Ezreal that came in a long time ago. Just able to dish out so much damage with those essential items. A 2-star Zed as well. 2-star set. Nice little frontline combo with 2-star Zac. This 3-star Senna, on the other hand, just doesn't have enough in front of her to keep her alive and something just lining up yet.
Yeah, did unfortunately manage to trap his Zed behind his other units there. That could have been very unfortunate into some other matchups, or perhaps a little later on in the game. However, so strong, so far ahead of the rest of the lobby right now that it just doesn't matter.
Yeah, interesting they chose to drop the 4 big shot in return for 4 bruiser frontline instead. I think just valuing having that tankiness instead. If Ezreal's getting like 3 or 4 more casts, it's worth a lot more than just having the extra big shot buff anyway, so wise choice in the end.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Fundamental TFT, good frontline, good backline.
Yeah. And hey, good frontline here. We have that headliner 8-bit Caitlyn as well, the only 8-bit unit in the board, but is making use of that passive on her own. Has the Runans, the blue of Infinity Edge. Does the Runans proc off her ultimate?
I believe it does. Similar to Akshan in set 9, works fairly well with Caitlyn. However, does look like the item suggested that he was playing towards an Ezreal and either missed or didn't hold down. Playing this line to the absolute edge is going to go to 1 HP, but will have 50 gold to work with and has already spent a lot of that gold on leveling up. Only 30 gold away from it. Is going to try and play for one of these massive giant capped out Heartsteel boards and go for that first place, thinking, I assume he believes it's the only way he can make top 8.
A couple of possibly useful emblems on the board as well. That Executioner emblem could be the Force to 6, that Bruiser emblem as well, possibly being picked up. Both do go almost immediately. Obviously, Urgewint has the Bruiser headliner as well, so we'll be able to maybe just have 6 bruises with that incredibly strong backline with the Ezreal. True damage and Executioner also picked up.
Yeah, the true damage emblem for the Senna is always a massive deal. Those 3 players have just had a massive power spike. It's whether or not some of them may have just hit it a little too late. It's very hard to know at this point. A lot of these players still reasonably close on HP. You know, we don't have anybody who is on that 70 health going into stage 6 like we have seen in these previous lobbies today. But these fights are going to be very close. A lot of these boards are quite similar in power level.
And we did see YLCO and Ponka both get knocked out at the end of the last lobby. The only Jax here on his last legs up against Ghost of the 3-star Samira here. So he only has one loss left in him. We'll see what this Karthus ult is able to do. There's quite a few units cleared up, but with that Mordekaiser dying now, there's pretty much no tanks left. And with Samira and Vex still on the board, this Karthus ult doesn't seem like it's going to be enough. Samira not even targeted, so the Oni Jax will drop out just under Humble Dog. Unfortunate timing, so doesn't get the +1 point.
Just manages to.
Oh, never mind. The execution damage came in as I was speaking. Just trying to make me look bad, man. So the Oni Jax actually very lucky. Counter to what I said. So does get that extra point, which will be very good as they slide their way up the lobby.
Yeah.
And we find our way into the final 3 of Game 3 today.
The cutoff for top 8 here is going to be on a knife edge. You know, a lot of these players really close to making top 8 who were on the edge, taking a lot of 4ths and 5ths, you know, seeing who ends up where is going to be really exciting. However, hitting that Executioner emblem probably just sealed Oni Jax's fate here. Could have potentially even snuck in for a 3rd there if that Executioner emblem hadn't come on carousel. So quite unfortunate, I'd say, for him.
Yeah, and I will say most of our sort of top scoring players in this lobby have been knocked out. Why use so many? The only one still left in. With where he is right now, he's guaranteed to go first at the end of the day. Given that in the other lobby, on 6969 was knocked out rather early and is currently sitting on 20 points. So with this final 2 finish for YEU, so many. As long as Chucky doesn't win the other lobby, he is guaranteed a first place. If Chucky wins, then YEU also needs to win.
Yeah, and this Heartsteel board looking like it's trying to push level 10. You know, not sure if it's going to get there. Might get there just to throw in one more unit. Potentially could be in a lap for that 6 bruiser just to be that next little power spike. Getting that 80% bonus health rather than 40 is a massive deal, especially on a unit like Zed.
Of course, and does have so much money to play with here as well. That's 76. As well as the pot of gold now finally coming in. Pot of gold with only 2 members left in the lobby must feel absolutely fantastic for both these players. They'll be able to hit like never before, leveling up to 10 and it's rolling all the way down. Picks up that 2-star Lucian, ignoring the Sonas. Does have a Bruiser Headliner Ilaoi available. We'll pick it up immediately as we see more Bruisers get thrown into the lobby. Gragas on the bench chooses to skip it though. It's interesting.
Yeah,
so not
just
going for the
press
6
for time.
Bruiser.
I'm trying to make sure he can get his board together and, you know, positioned the way he wants it to be positioned. Be interesting to see how this fight goes. You're being clumped up against the Senna, maybe not exactly where you want to be, trying to maximize the Aegis value in this fight. However, is your board just that strong? And it's going to come down to it.
Sliver of HP left on that Jin. He's had about 6 or 7 of those violins firing. Incredibly close in that lobby, and that must feel good if you're YE so many. Sorry, if you're Entrant, because you now have time to think about your board a bit more, actually move things around, actually. Maybe get that 6th Bruiser in if you desire as well.
Yeah, and these 2 players taking a really different approach to the pot of gold. Getting that, what was it, 60 gold each? YEU here chose, instead of rolling it all very fast like Urshwint did, he chose to save it, make sure he caps out his board as much as possible, almost sacrificing that fight, and so it'll be really interesting to see whether or not it pays off.
Yeah, that's why coming in here, again, it seems like a much more dominant win this time now that YEU didn't have as much time advantage over Enchwint overall. That win streak coming in hot here, and the Senna just seems to have been slightly outscaled by the overall comp of that 6 Bruiser level 10 frontline, with the Ezreal dishing out ridiculous damage from the back as well.
Yeah, no, I certainly wouldn't count this true damage board out just yet. You know, potentially has one more good loss in it as well. It can definitely start turning around fights, especially good positioning with this Senna. He is clumping into this Heartsteel board. The only reason he lost the last fight is the Zed did manage to get in the backline. If he can prevent that from happening, his frontline may be able to stall for long enough for this Senna to do work.
Yeah, the Nico item's a bit unfortunate as well, 2 damage items as well. Using a tank too much, but is able to get an ult up at least. I get the shots from the front. Senna getting a lot more free firing this time as well. Ari backside. Ezreal does land the ult onto both of the main carries on the backside. Ezreal still full HP. Alawi not dead yet, and with only 2 carries left. Alawi going down this side. If Ezreal gets this one big castle and is able to crit, he does take Senna down really low, and these last few ulters will finish off IUS. So many, but not enough to knock them out yet, so there's still one last breath.
Yeah, it does just look like the Heartsteel board has just accumulated too many resources over the course of this game. Getting the 6 bruiser in finally, I think that might have been the difference in why the first fight looked so close. Not having that 6 bruiser in just seems to be making all the difference.
Yeah, you're picking up Ginsu's. I seem to go on that good Lucian friend of ours. As he gets slammed down. Instead, Olaf just chilling in the bottom right corner, getting that 6 bruiser buff. Does hit a 2-star Kiana, obviously not really looking to on the board, but just getting rid of these legendaries to try and roll down. Manages to 2-star Yorick as well onto the field.
Yeah, it's really a tough life whenever you've got a 2-star Kiana on the bench.
Yeah.
First world problems.
Yeah, not too much to add to this composition, but we'll be able to see if you can just close out with one final win, or if that carousel is enough to turn YUS into a strong enough board. That Lucian with the Ginsu is now doing so much more work. Ezreal getting a big crit ult, almost getting rid of the Ahri completely, and it's a much more dominant win than last time. Urshiwind will take this win. YUS so many does take 2nd place, which I don't think he'll be too upset with, given he's had a fantastic day all round. Now, that does bring us to the end of our final game of the day. We do have a little bit more content coming your way with that being said, but before we throw off to a break, I do just want to quickly take us through the leaderboards so far, how the bracket is shaping up today. So, as you can all see, the top 8 as it stands is YUS so many on 24 points, who just collected a big few from that last lobby on 6969, and Tons So Cool tied for 2nd on 20 points. We then have another tie for 4th and another tie for 6th with 18 points and 16 points apiece. The only JX bringing up the rear end of the top half with 15 points. In the bottom half, Humble Dog sitting on 8 points, Honka with 9 moving up to 11, and then a tied 12, 13 and tied 14 for 9th place. So 16 points separate top and bottom of the lobby. Technically anything can still happen next week, but we do have some people starting to pull away from the pack as we move into that final week. Now, when we return from the next break, we will be back with an interview from YUS So Many, our top player from the week, and me and Chris will have a couple of little questions to ask, a couple of little statements to give, and then we'll be on our way. So stick around for that interview, stick around for a bit more of your favorite caster duo, and we'll see you guys in 3 minutes.
they're not super with the current and only fans rooting on the next round of the
Everyone is do hate snakes, and this snake will end it here for the double kill versus Kyrie on the bright side of this fight. Cancel fast forward.
Good evening again, everyone, and welcome back to the cooldown segment for the University Esports UK and Republic of Ireland Spring 2024 Teamfight Tactics season. That was a fantastic first day of games that we just had, and to top it all off, we are joined now by our tied second place player, Tun So Cool, who's just going to answer a few questions for us, give us some insight into these fantastic players that we had on show today. So, first of all, hello, Tun. Do you want to just quickly introduce yourself to everyone?
Hi, my name is Tan. I'm from Durham University. Right now, I'm a first year of master student.
Fantastic. So, first question, I guess. I just wanted to ask, what was your mind like when you went into these games? Did you want to be more aggressive? Did you want to be more reserved? Because obviously you started very strong, but I wanted to understand sort of what your plan was going into this.
Yeah, actually, I try to win early because when you have a lot of HP, a lot of health point, you can decide which comp you want to play, and so you can flex many comp as well as like I try to itemize first, and then I try to figure out what comp should I play after I got an item. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, flexing between all these comps, it's definitely the best strategy at the minute, having all these different things to choose from because of the balance the game's in at the minute. However, what do you tend to lean towards at the minute?
Sorry, again, please.
What compositions do you prefer?
Actually, I like reroll comp like Executioner, Riven, or something like Seraphine or Sienna. But that depends on luck. Which one come to my shop, I gonna buy it and I gonna play it.
Yeah, so it's just hyper flexible strategy.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And then one more question just before we go. So I wanted to ask, looking forward to next week, you're second place right now, 20 points. What do you think you need to do to grab that top spot? What do you think maybe needs to change, or do you think you're going to stick with the same playstyle but maybe just get a bit more lucky, maybe just hope to hit more? What do you think has to change for you to move into that first place position next week?
Yeah, what I should do is that I have to look at the meta first, which comp is the best, and then I have to scout more, because when you look at other boards, you will see which comp are they gonna play. And the last one is that I have to practice and pray to the god that wish me luck. Yeah, because TFT is just a luck game and you have to use a little bit skill. That's it.
Oh, fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Tun. Before you go, do you want to quickly give a shout out to anyone, or say thank you, or just say anything to the people who are watching at home?
Okay, thank you everyone for watching me. And if everyone want to get good at TFT, just pray to the god. This game is pretty bad. Thank you.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us, Tun. You can go and enjoy the rest of your evening, and me and Chris are going to give the rest of the show its cool
Thank
off.
you very much. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye. Fantastic. Well, thank you again, everyone, for watching. Thank you very much, Christopher, for being here as my co-caster. I'm going to give you now one last chance if you want to shout anyone out, if you want to quickly just bring anyone to the forefront or say thank you, etc. Now's your time.
Yeah, no, it's been really nice casting with you, and obviously, shout out to my college, all my friends in class, the people who introduced me to TFT 8 months ago.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much to everyone again for watching. On behalf of me, on behalf of all the prod team, Alex, Becca, everyone behind the scenes, obviously. I don't usually name people because I always miss someone out, but thank you to everyone involved. It's been a pleasure from us here. We hope you have a lovely rest of your evening, and we hope to see you again next week. Thank you, and good night.
must think that I'm a restless case because I ran away, because I ran away.